We live in a society in which structural racism is a very real thing. We are all dealing with that in every aspect of our lives, and the media is a reflection of our community.
Historically, black people have been portrayed a certain way in the media to justify normative assumptions around political and social issues.
More black people behind the cameras, in front of the cameras, more producers, more people of color producing, so they can go and get the content that's needed so they can highlight our attributes.
I've been in this industry for 15 years, and I've seen firsthand how our voices just aren't heard. Even if you're in the newsroom, sometimes you get completely ignored and stereotypes are allowed to perpetuate. And one thing we want to do is combat that and also bring information to people so they can be as informed as possible when choices are made in the city, so they can do whatever they can to get their voices heard.
What I believe can be done about the situation is to have more people of color creating news stories. More people who have a interest in and a social consciousness that relates to the stories that they're telling.
Charlottesville Tomorrow looks at these issues. We can present them on IMHO. Vinegar Hill Magazine can take that a step further, and just together we can just make this thing that can be an example of how we can change the media landscape, how we can be more inclusive to get these voices in, to get these people heard. That's just one thing that doesn't happen in so many places, and it's a shame.
We think we live in a society that's very progressive, and we're talking about equity and diversity and inclusion and all these things. Still, the way that black people, and I would say, and I would argue especially black men, are portrayed by the media is incredibly dangerous, and you've seen the sort of tangible violence that it's led to over the past year.
The community can support the SIM project by first and foremost giving us an opportunity. We understand that it can be difficult to give trust right now, especially considering the current social and political environment. But this project will only be as successful as the community allows it to be. And so we ask you to give us the opportunity to do the work, critique the work, and make sure that we stay aligned with the vision. Another way that the community can get behind the SIM project is through engagement. We want to hear from you. We want to know what you're talking about. We want to put your stories out there. And so whether it's reading the articles written by Charlottesville Tomorrow or Vinegar Hill Magazine, or tuning in to In My Humble Opinion on Sundays on 101.3 Jams from noon to 3 p.m., either way, we want you engaged. We want you to be part of this. The community can also support the SIM project through funding. To learn more about how to support SIM, you can visit our website. Thank you for your support.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis. Only on 101.3 Jams.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles up in the booth in the building. Who we got?
Miss Max.
Razor.
Hey, 2026. How y'all doing?
Doing good.
Hey, that was fun.
That's what I'm talking about right there.
She fast on her feet.
Yeah, yes indeed.
Slip and slide.
In the booth in the building, and can't forget about the people that's making us sound and look good right about now. Nino K, how you doing back there?
2026, Nino K.
That's right. You know, and as we start this 2026, well, you know, for the folks that could be anywhere in the world, but they chose to be with us one more again. We bring it into something, as y'all heard, you probably heard the new fresh theme music by none other than the Gentile Band.
Oh, yeah.
Got to give it up for Gentile, looking out for us. And then we played one of her tracks too, Thinking About You, local talent right there that's doing big things. Y'all look her up.
For sure.
She's all about. So love her supporting her partnership. We mentioned Nino's in the building with us.
Yeah.
You know, we got the new assistant producer, Nino K.
Appreciate you.
In here with us. And there's going to be so much more new to the format, trying to make it bigger and better for the people. Take Charlottesville to the world, bring the world to Charlottesville.
That's how we do.
Per usual, right? But as we go into the future, though, y'all, it's just as important for us to recognize the past.
Right.
And as the public knows, unfortunately, we lost one of our stalwarts. We lost one of the reasons that IMHO exists, one of the reasons that Charlottesville Inclusive Media exists. The reason that Vinegar Hill, in its reincarnation, so to speak, from what it originally was, exists once again. Talking about none other than the legend, my OG, Eddie Harris, who was funeralized just on yesterday. That's right, aka Ducey. Just Razor, as you always tell us, the story was such a pivotal part of that decision of IMHO becoming part of Charlottesville Inclusive Media. Us, Max, along with Sarad Davenport, coming to the table with Giles Morris back then, even before Angelique took reign, just figuring out like what was the best move forward for collaboration, right, within local media and for Black media. Like, what do we need to keep growing and take things to the next level, and for our people to be able to speak for themselves and represent themselves? So for those that don't know, he was a champion in the community for so many young men, such an example when it comes to rehabilitation and teaching what a real dad is, right? But then also for Black media. So definitely got to start the show properly. As we bring all this newness in, right? We got to know that last year ended and we brought in this year on sort of a somber note. But as Nakaya, and I'm gonna kick it to y'all for y'all reflections, but as Nakaya Walker, former mayor, said yesterday, she pointed out, even with the adversities that Eddie and other young Black men go through in the community, you think of what could have been, right? Like you think of how great he was and how much of a giant he was. She talked about, if it wasn't for the adversities, who made us who we are. But think about what even could have been, like bigger than that, if it wasn't for like so many systematical things that try to hold us back. So that's where I'm at today, y'all. Like, as we think about where we're going in the future, how do we make him proud? How do we carry on this legacy that he laid the foundation for?
Right. I was fortunate enough to hear a lot of the remarks that people in this community had to say about Eddie at one of the most recent council meetings. People showed up. They showed up for this man to pay their respects, to pay homage, and to let the city know that this man, as a quote, Martez Tolbert, was a giant, and how much he meant to them. And I'll tell you that it was beautiful to see. It was absolutely beautiful to see. I was not fortunate in the way that many of them were to know Eddie to the level that a lot of them did, but to be an onlooker and an observer of that, it made me wish I had have known him better.
I feel you.
Which speaks volumes as to the love of support and the love that people displayed for him. And another thing that comes to mind as all of the show of love and display was shown in the community for Eddie and what he did for people's lives and for the community and for the calls and for our people was that there's an old saying that goes, "May the work I've done speak for me," right? And his work spoke for him, and they spoke through the voices of so many individuals that live right here in this community whose lives he's touched. And that's the only thing I feel personally that any of us can hope for, right? Is that, at least for me, myself, is that I touch somebody's life, that the work I'm doing right here, sitting in this chair, speaking into this microphone, touches someone's life where it improves it, it grows it, it develops it, all of these different things. And Eddie definitely did that in the time that he had to walk this earth.
Good word.
Yeah. When Charles, when you told me that he had passed, like, it was a gut punch for me. Many people, there were two people that embraced me that kind of in private, but public too, that kind of molded me here in the Charlottesville area. One was Mel from Mel's Kitchen. The other was Eddie. Both of them would listen. I'm fortunate enough to have a show before that comes on here called The Body.
That's right.
And both of them would listen to him every morning and then contact me after the show to tell me what I did, it was never what I could do better. It was always what I did, why I need to continue doing that. And during that conversation that you were talking about for the Charlottesville Inclusive Media Project, when I went to Eddie and Sarad and I talked to them about, us formulating, coming together, y'all have heard me say a quote a lot, and I need y'all to know that it came from Eddie, is that we don't teach people what to think, we teach them to think. And that is something that the first time that he ever said it, when he invited me into his house, I never have been able to forget that quote. So that is something of him that I plan on carrying along as to everybody that I try to influence, because for me, he wanted me to always make sure that I was intentional when I tried to sow into people's lives, as Max said, because too often we do things and we get the rewards for the things that we do, but how intentional are we? Especially guys coming from the street, you were intentional in chasing after your money, so that when you make that turn, when you turn that corner, you try to be intentional on how you sow into young men's lives, especially to show them that, like, I'm not telling you what to do. This is what I did to come through. Let me show you the way so you don't have to go through every single thing. So to know him, to be able to call him Deucey and him turn around and answer you was an honor.
That's right.
Love it. That's pretty much all I have to say.
Love it, y'all. Feeling the love, and I think we got to do, what we are called to do, right? I think that's how we can best remember and memorialize and carry on that legacy is by, in my humble opinion, Vinegar Hill Magazine, Charlottesville Inclusive Media, to spread the voices of the people of Charlottesville even wider. Right. Louder and wider. Right. So how about we get to it, y'all?
All right.
What you think?
Yeah.
All hearts and minds.
Let's go.
Let's get it. So we're gonna play a little music, then we're gonna be right back with who, Max? Who first guess?
Well, Dr. Sharika Jones Lewis will be joining us next. You know this person, right?
All right.
You right, y'all?
I heard of her.
Yeah. She'll be joining us first, and she'll be talking to Dr. Sharika Jones Lewis is help me with the title, Charles, the director of community schools for the Charlottesville City Schools. And so she's going to be talking to us about her new role, what that looks like, responsibilities are, and how she will be serving, she and her team, I presume, will be serving the children in our great city.
Sounds good. IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis, only on 101.3 Jams.
We live in a society in which structural racism is a very real thing. We are all dealing with that in every aspect of our lives, and the media is a reflection of our community.
Historically, black people have been portrayed a certain way in the media to justify normative assumptions around political and social issues.
More black people behind the cameras, in front of the cameras, more producers, more people of color producing, so they can go and get the content that's needed so they can highlight our attributes.
I've been in this industry for 15 years, and I've seen firsthand how our voices just aren't heard. Even if you're in the newsroom, sometimes you get completely ignored and stereotypes are allowed to perpetuate. And one thing we want to do is combat that and also bring information to people so they can be as informed as possible when choices are made in this city, so they can do whatever they can to get their voices heard.
What I believe can be done about the situation is to have more people of color creating news stories, more people who have a interest in and a social consciousness that relates to the stories that they're telling.
Charlottesville Tomorrow looks at these issues. We can present them on IMHO. Vinegar Hill Magazine can take that a step further, and just together we can just make this thing that can be an example of how we can change the media landscape, how we can be more inclusive to get these voices in, to get these people heard. That's just one thing that doesn't happen in so many places, and it's a shame.
We think we live in a society that's very progressive, and we're talking about equity and diversity and inclusion and all these things. Still, the way that black people, and I would say, and I would argue, especially black men, are portrayed by the media is incredibly dangerous, and you've seen the sort of tangible violence that it's led to over the past year.
The community can support the SIM project by first and foremost giving us an opportunity. We understand that it can be difficult to give trust right now, especially considering the current social and political environment. But this project will only be as successful as the community allows it to be. And so we ask you to give us the opportunity to do the work, critique the work, and make sure that we stay aligned with the vision. Another way that the community can get behind the SIM project is through engagement. We want to hear from you. We want to know what you're talking about. We want to put your stories out there. And so whether it's reading the articles written by Charlottesville Tomorrow or Vinegar Hill Magazine, or tuning into In My Humble Opinion on Sundays on 101.3 Jams from noon to 3 p.m., either way, we want you engaged. We want you to be part of this. The community can also support the SIM project through funding.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis, only on 101.3 Jams.
IMHO Talk Show.
I am H.O. Talk Show, Sir Charles.
Miss Max.
That's right. Back like we never left. And thank you all for joining us, because we are joined right now with a special guest. You know, I'm gonna kick it over to Miss Max.
Yeah.
Because whenever there's like good, you know, powerful Black woman energy, I always like Miss Max to, you know, to lead that, because I don't want to, you know, damper it at all, anything like that.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that, Charles. This is really always a great respect. Anytime I get to engage with this individual, have them on the show. It's been a great support in time of need, but also doing great community work. And if you're Facebook friends or I presume friends on any social media platform, you know she loved them babies, right?
That's right. That's for sure.
And I'm referring to none other than Dr. Sharika Jones-Lewis. Welcome to the show.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Happy to be here.
Happy to have you, and happy to talk to you about this new role that you've taken on. Super excited. I was over the moon just to hear that you were working with our kids in our local schools, Charlottesville City Schools, and I knew they were in good hands. Like, that is great when you hear about somebody being put into a role that is caring for something that you know is dear and has great potential and needs to be handled carefully. And you get the perfect person in that role to be able to do that task. And so, yes, you've recently taken on the role as the Director of Community Schools for Charlottesville City Schools. And we want to talk all about that, what that means, what you'll be doing, and then, of course, how this will impact our community.
Thank you.
Introduce yourself.
I'm Sharika Jones-Lewis. I am the Director of Community Schools for the city. I also still have my role at the Center for Community Partnerships at UVA, where I'm the Director of Community Research.
Okay.
And so I'm happy to be here and happy to be able to work with all of the wonderful people and organizations and also people in the schools that are already doing such beautiful work.
Awesome.
Indeed. So there's a lot of questions, you know, when the position came up, as far as folks even asking me, and probably ask Max too, like, did she leave UVA? So is she a teacher again? Is she a principal now? So for folks that don't know, when they hear Director of Community Schools, go ahead and break that down for us. Let us know first how that came to be, and then what that entails.
Absolutely. So like I said, I do still have my other job as well. And I think that being able to work across organizations has been useful. When you hear community schools, it is exactly what it sounds like, and that is schools and community really working together in order to serve our students and families as best we can. And so making sure that we are not siloed and not just working schools by themselves, but also some support from the university, but most of the support coming from the city of Charlottesville itself, right? So coming from the Department of Human Services that already does amazing work that they have been doing over decades. And then also from a lot of our community-based organizations that have been working with our youth and with our families. And really my job is to make sure or try to make sure, it's hard, that those things are working together. And so that those efforts are really amplified, so that we are reducing unnecessary duplication, but also duplicating things that we see are working across space. So if we see something working in one area, really trying to double down on that, and support those efforts as best we can.
Okay.
Nice. So what can you tell us so far? Because this is a fresh position, is new. So like, what has that integration looked like thus far? Any tidbits you can give us as to like how it started? Like what some of the early projected goals are that all of those partners that you're mentioning are kind of coming to the table for.
Yeah. I feel like that was a lot of questions, so I'm gonna try to tackle the ones I remember. So the Virginia Department, let me start with community schools as a national model, all right? And so it's something that's used all over the country in order to improve quality of life and outcomes for students and families. The Virginia Department of Education actually offers some grant funds for schools and or school divisions to be able to implement a community schools model. So Denise Johnson, who works for the city, applied for one of these grants and really asked for a few different things in her grant application. One of them was a person to coordinate this work, which is where my role comes in. Another one was for money for a van to be able to transport materials and students and other things across the city as needed.
Okay.
And then she also asked for money for some literacy supplies. And so understanding that one of our major issues in the schools is that some of our students are really struggling with their reading proficiency. And so understanding that often takes a lot of different resources, some of them tangible. And so that is what that initial grant is for. My role is to really understand what it would take to make some of this work more sustainable, right? And so I'm really working on coordination, evaluation, and sustainability. And so again, we're not doing a lot of new things because there's already so much wonderful going on. We are trying to better coordinate those things across space so that they are sustainable in the future.
Okay.
Great.
And can we
Awesome.
dig into those, what those key points are or issues are that your department and those that you're coordinating with across the city are working to address? So reading proficiency being one of those. Is there sort of a list of things that you all are tackling?
Definitely. So, and again, what we are tackling has been co-created with our community. So is an advisory board that has half Charlottesville City School staff and half community members.
Okay.
And then for each level, there are working groups as well. So there's a K-6 level that we're calling Confidence and Comprehension Club.
Nice.
And that has a bunch of working group members. And then we have Bridge Builders that are focusing on our middle schoolers. And then we have the lab where we're focusing on our high schoolers across both of the campuses. And so we came to the table with the initial goals that were written up in the grant, and we presented those out to folks and said, are we on the right track?
Okay.
What do we need to add, omit, change? And then we came up with some revised goals. So at the high school level, we are really focusing on coordination. So a lot of our students at the high school level just kind of get lost in the sauce. And so the Virginia Department of Education is really focusing on a 3E model where they want not just our students to graduate, which we also want, but they want them to, after graduation, be employed, enrolled, or enlisted.
Okay.
And so really looking at those three avenues of not just us kind of getting them through, but getting them to something that's going to really help them to have a positive life after that. And so that could mean our students, like we said, getting a job straight out that we help them to coordinate. Sarah Morton at Virginia CareerWorks is leading a lot of that work already. We're trying to improve coordination in terms of how do we get her those names and allow her to be able to tap in with those students earlier. We are also looking at some of our students who have historically struggled to keep up with their high school graduation credits and what it looks like to support them on alternative paths. We still want them to graduate, but again, giving them a reason to want to graduate. If we always frame graduation around going to college and they don't want to go to college, then they're like, well, what am I graduating for?
Exactly.
And so we're working with PVCC on they already have a platform that they use to get folks ready to work. So looking at driver's license and certain skills. And so using something similar for our high school students.
Okay.
I know I'm talking a lot. At
that's the answers. Yeah.
At the middle school level, we are really focusing on belonging and sense of self.
That's great.
And so we have a lot of our CBOs instead of, including City of Promise, Abundant Life, Creciendo Juntos, Civil Tulips, Charlottesville United, and Boys and Girls Club are going to be pushing into lunches at Charlottesville Middle School, actually starting this week.
Okay.
And just building relationships with our students. One of our goals that you asked about earlier was social emotional learning. So understanding that doesn't stop when you hit 5th grade, right? And so really infusing some of those skills into those lunch groups is one of our goals, but we're starting with, we just need the students to be open and talking, and then also building some better sense of self. So some of those groups will be run in English, some will be run in Spanish, and some will be run in Arabic to allow them space and opportunity to speak their home languages, but then also to cross those groups over and make sure that they are building relationships in and amongst themselves.
Right.
And then lastly, I'll talk about the Confidence and Comprehension Club. So that's really focused on those two things. So building confidence for our students and focusing on things like school attendance and literacy, but also comprehension. Juanica Howard from the Department of Human Services. And again, that department, I'm going to talk just about the reading clubs that she started both at Summit and at Trailblazer. But y'all know that Latara and John and there's Charles D and Misty. That department already does amazing work across all of these spaces and groups. And so part of my job is to make sure that whatever we're doing is not getting in the way of that.
Gotcha.
So yeah.
And that was sort of going to be my next question.
Okay. And so just in terms of the Confidence and Comprehension Club, there's the reading clubs. We're also working with UVA to train literacy mentors. And these are not relationship-based mentors, but they are mentors who are meant to actually help teach the students to read. And then we're also working on amplifying some of our relationship mentors. We're working with College Mentors for Kids that already does a great job with a lot of our schools and students. They're actually adding Tall Oaks, formerly Johnson, as of February. So the planning for that is in place now. They'll start with 10 students this year. And if all of that goes well, they'll be able to scale up to 30 to 40 students who are able to receive relationship-based mentoring in next school year.
Okay. That's great work. It's a mouthful, but I'm sorry. It's great work. The only comment I really want to make, and I have to say this because for those of you who listen to me Sunday after Sunday, you know I'm a really people-centered person. So to hear the work that's being poured into these students, especially in the lower grade levels, as far as a sense of belonging and mentorship and handling of their emotions and different things like that. That is so vital. That is the foundation to everything. So great to hear that type of work is going on because it really sets the stage of whether or not they'll be able to perform adequately as they reach those higher grades and have good relationships and really fulfill or live a productive and fulfilling life. So
and Razor,
good.
I know how you think after 10 years.
Yeah.
So you may or may not be going here, but so you mentioned as far as collaboration and integration and not getting in the way, actually utilizing the current services, right, and really amplifying those to get this work done. I'm sure there's going to be naysayers. I'm sure there's people listening to this and like, yeah, all that sounds great, but this is Charlottesville. And people are going to be very opinionated. People are going to feel like there's toes are getting stepped on, all that kind of thing. So, can you talk just a little bit about some of the methodology and some of the means, from your perspective, that can be used to really achieve this integration and this collaboration, right? Like when you bring folks to the table how do we make people at the table feel like that they really are being listened to and that their work is appreciated?
I think actually listen to them and then and actually appreciate them. And so I'm a human, right? Like I'm gonna make mistakes, but I really do try to be humble. And I say, in almost every interaction, like I know some things. I know one thing I know for sure is that I don't know everything, right? And that we cannot meet the needs of our students and families if we don't work together. So it's really not an option. What I've found is that everyone is really trying to work hard to do their best in their realm. And there are some times that like people's toes get stepped on, or like people get upset. How I handle that and how we generally handle that at the center is to just apologize, right? Like like genuine apology. Like if we ever do something that is abrasive or is not leading towards the goal of making things better for students and families, like truly that is something we are sorry for, right? Because it's never the goal to try to usurp power or energy or space or any of that. And frankly, if that is the goal, then I would tap out. Because that's never going to work. Like we have to work together. What I keep saying to people is you can't have community schools without community, and you can't have community schools without schools. One of the things that I'll mention too is that what you didn't hear me say is doing a lot of work directly with teachers. And that is because our teachers, we know, are already busting their butts. They are already, if y'all don't listen to anything else from this, pay teachers. So teachers are already underpaid. They are already working their tails off. And so we are trying to again enter into this work being supportive of that work, but not requiring more of them, and not making for sure that our lanes are not getting into their lanes. And so that's what we got to do, is like actually be humble and actually be working towards the betterment of our students and families.
Charles, I got to add this part. You do know how I think. Dr. Lewis, we're going to step on some toes here for a second, because y'all do amazing work as teachers, right? But one of the things that I don't think that we say enough to our community, and that's not just talking about Black people, but just people that are struggling when it comes to their education, is that when somebody like yourself comes along and sets a barometer, a baseline, that does not mean because it's difficult that we then turn around and say, you know what, we want to create Ebonics so that we can have success by doing less than, or this is what we're comfortable doing, so this is what is going to be our measure of success, and then cry when our kids graduate and then can't get jobs because they can't talk adequately at an interview. So what I would urge us is to see how we can then join into what you're creating and not look for the easy route. I think that is a huge problem when it comes to our children now, because the parents of these children really didn't have the best education themselves, right? They want better for their children, but when the child comes home with homework that they don't really understand, they either push it off, or they, it starts to bring about something internal in them that shows an inadequacy in their, to the child. And no parent wants to look less than their child. So I think that however we can get to the point where parents can admit that they don't, like you said, I don't know what I don't know. I don't know everything, right? But I'm here to support. And that doesn't mean that I throw up a roadblock because I can't help my child do the work. I ran across that with my father could add numbers in underwater, right? But when it came to some other things, he just didn't know how to do it. So he did the old man thing. Well, I don't know, go ask your mama. Or I sit down and look at it. Look at what did the teacher tell you? And I think that still goes along till today, but that's something that we don't talk about, especially when it comes to our Black men who may not always be in the house or may not be prevalent in the education. Because when I go to like these, not the school board meetings, but when I go to do things for my children in school, there's only like 2 or 3 Black males that's present. Now, I understand people got to work, but when they start talking about, okay, can you read this to the kids, or the thing that Charles had me go to where we were reading to the students, even though we're taking pictures and we're clapping, it's only 13 people out of however many African-American children that we have there.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that we have to do a better job in our community of supporting things, like going to these meetings and find out what you require of me in the next semester. So that I can be ready before that comes. And if I don't know what to do, I can get help so I can be an adequate part of the solution.
Yeah, absolutely. And so a couple of different things there. Like you said, when we say we are talking about all of us.
Mm-hmm.
So not just Black students and families, but every single student and family in the community. And I also think that you really hit on something important, and that is one of the pillars. There's 4 pillars of community schools. The first is integrated student supports. And that means making sure that all of their basic needs are met, not expecting them to come to school hungry or without with like having a toothache or things like that, and still be able to learn, really meeting those needs. The second is expanded and enriched learning opportunities. And so that includes not just some of the things we talked about with the academic learning, but also the social emotional learning. And so that could be enriching things that are happening within the school environment, but also things that are happening outside of the school environment. The third pillar is family and community engagement, right? We are going to be at First Baptist on January 29th. From 6 to 7 p.m. We don't want to drag it too late because we know people need to get out. There will be free parking at the parking lot beside First Baptist, and there will also be food. We're going to start with focusing on reading school reports, right? And so you'll sometimes get your students' SOL report or their MAP report, which is measures of academic progress, and or their reading program support. We use HMH, and then parents don't know how to read it. Right. And so they don't necessarily understand where their students' reading level is. And so they don't necessarily understand whether how to then help them or maybe the urgency of that help. The schools do provide this information. We want to make sure that the information is provided in a way that our community members can really receive it, and also that there's two-way feedback, right? So an opportunity to ask questions and to really sit down with a report and go, well, what about this part? Or this part confuses me, or I'd like to know this, right? So really building that two-way communication. The fourth pillar of community schools is collaborative leadership. So like I said, with the advisory board and the working groups, but it's also the fact that when we went and met with the pastor and some of his congregation members at First Baptist, they said, we need this. Right.
That's good.
And so not we're going to from central office say the people need to know this, because that does not work. Even if you build it, many times people will not come. You need to be working with people to understand what they need, where they need it, how they need it in order to really, really make that work.
Yeah.
The only other thing that I'll say, as a Black mom myself, is that we do have to take responsibility for the things that we do have control over, right? And so many times it's issues of transportation or access timing. Like you said, people are at work, right? And that does not mean that they don't care about their children. But when we can tap in, when we can get our students over to maybe the Abundant Life space or the City of Promise space or to the church or to other things, we should. And then when we can't, and this is maybe something that I'm asking for, is asking for help, asking for support. And breaking down some of those mental barriers that we have that sometimes don't allow us to do that.
And when you say asking, you're speaking of city government, everyday citizen, a hybrid, or?
I think individual people asking individual people for supports is where a lot of this starts. But this is why I'm really leaning into talking about our community-based organizations. That's where a lot of the trust sits that is necessary for this work to be able to happen, right? So if I'm already talking to, this is a great example, is that Z Howard was at the school board meeting on Thursday with some of the dream builders, really talking about things that their students are facing that they would like support for, right? So that her relationship, the City of Promise relationship with those individuals and through that program are why that happens. And so making sure, again, we don't need to recreate the wheel and think of a bunch of different ways to be pulling in folks. We need to use the infrastructures that we have and to amplify those.
And I think there's just a point to be made about that last comment that you said too, because a lot of times we're having discussions about what the city needs, like what we're lacking for our communities to be able to thrive. But what you're saying is that what we need for our children and to see the success of our children already exists. It's it's already functioning here. It just might need to be stretched or expanded a bit, but it's already here. We just need to take advantage of those opportunities.
Yes, taking advantage of opportunities and really utilizing a lot of the stuff that's already in place. And there might be some additional things, right? But how do we even know that if we're not already accessing some of the things that are in place? I reposted yesterday on my Facebook page that the KYIP applications opened up.
I saw.
And KYIP is really focused on supporting Charlottesville's city youth and having those early job opportunities and really teaching them how to be an employee, right? Again, when I talk to parents and to other folks about what they want their kid to graduate with, it's not calculus, right? It is
a whole human being,
right?
Yeah.
And like them understanding like how to hold their head up and how to walk into a room, and some of those financial literacy things like how to balance your account and how to think about money, which is another thing I should mention. Some of our lab folks are working on how do we get in with students and really give them more of those opportunities to understand that real world kind of money issue. But we need to be working together in order to see some of these beautiful opportunities.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Agree.
So I think lastly, the question is, do you feel everybody is at the table, like the stakeholders are at the table? And if not, how do they reach out? How would one get involved? Is there channels for feedback or input, things like that?
Do I feel everybody's at the table? No, because...
Well, don't come to the table if you're coming with your ego. And look, I wanted to jump on Raisa's bandwagon, but I didn't want to belabor the point.
No.
Like, come for these babies, right?
Right.
Well, and I will say everybody who we have been engaging with has definitely come for the babies.
Okay.
Absolutely, positively.
Good.
In terms of is everybody at the table, I did want to talk about this one piece. One of the things that Community Schools Models does pretty widely is they have like a parent advisory.
Okay.
The reason we did not set that up, and it's something that I'm definitely willing to take feedback on, is that if you have a parent advisory that meets at 11 a.m.
Yeah.
Right. Like you're going to get the people who can meet at 11 a.m. And then if you have one that meets at 7 p.m., you're going to get the people who, right. So like, I really can't wrap my head around how we don't cut people out of the process by trying to bring people into the process. So how we're handling that right now is, again, coordinating with our already existing parent groups across our CBOs in order to be getting feedback, but also just being open to feedback, right? Like the parents and community members who were at the meeting at First Baptist, they're not on the parent advisory, but they are parents.
Okay.
So they can advise.
Yeah.
Right. We are working right now, and I did just start November 1st. But we are working right now on how do we set up a more sustainable mechanism to hear parent voices and to be able to coordinate responses to those. I would think that one of the important things to state here is if you're a parent and you're like, I really need this and it's urgent, go to your school. There are school social workers at each school, and also I'm trying to think of the role. Other people who work in Rachel Rasnick's office at the school who can really help with some of those immediate supports. We are then meeting with the school personnel and our CBO. Sorry, I should say that too. If you don't feel comfortable going to the schools, you can also reach out to some of these community-based organizations. And as we are meeting with them, we are really gathering information on what we need to do. If people have other ideas as to how we can have a coordinated response for feedback,
I got one.
all ears. Go ahead.
Dr. Lewis, have you ever thought about, like, sales is my thing. That's what, I'm into. The most profitable time for sales is holiday times. We tend to look at school and education as like, everybody needs their time that breaks away. But if you were to open it up somehow during holiday times, regardless of how small that holiday is, a lot of people are off and people go shopping during that time. So they will actually leave their house if it's something that they want to do. So maybe thinking out the box and then meeting them at what they're already doing might be a way, because they're going to be out anyway.
It's a thought. What I will say is that then will, especially our school-based personnel, that kind of cuts them out of the equation because they do get very few days off. And so, but it's definitely something to think about.
Is it for the information though? I'm sorry, I didn't pull the mic. Because for the school personnel, if they take their time off, but then you have like volunteers come in to just gather the information, then they relay it back to the people, then it's still a transactional thing. So that might be a way of working it.
Yes. And we don't want it to be necessarily transactional, right? But relationship building. But like you said, too, there is some value in like just letting people know stuff. And that's something that we are definitely doing. But also in the making sure that it's just not like a one-way flow of information, that it's really relationship building and really leaning into that engagement piece in ways that are meaningful to the community. Also understanding that our school calendar doesn't match everyone's holiday calendar, and that we need to be cognizant of, we have a very varied student and family population who celebrate a lot of different things, and some of our students and families who don't celebrate at all, right? And so really understanding that as well. I think that one of the things that's always resonant with me is that we have all of our students and we have student groups, but every single student deserves the best experience. Y'all know that I worked, when I was an assistant principal, I was down at Walton. Some of my neediest students don't necessarily fit into the student groups that we normally talk about. Them babies still needed support and they deserve it, right? So making sure that we're not losing any individual student as we talk about students.
Okay.
Good stuff, Ms. Max.
Yeah, I want to, a follow-up question as far as community members getting involved. You had mentioned that UVA was training individuals to be literacy teachers and mentors. Is that something that any and everyone could sign up for if they're interested?
Yeah, that's a really good point. So we're working with Stacy Riedall, who is the literacy coordinator for the city. And we already have some literacy mentors that are trained. We need to work with UVA to just better understand capacity. One of the things that we will be doing though moving forward is not just training students, right? Because that's who has normally been trained is UVA students, which is great. but UVA students, also PVCC students,
Okay.
and then community members as well.
Okay.
We know that if I'm a literacy mentor and I'm trained to teach someone to read, but I don't have the relationship to get them to sit down
Mm-hmm.
or to get them to have a conversation with me, that doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
And so we need our community members to be also tapping into that work.
Okay.
So that it is again sustainable and works best for our students.
Right. This is awesome. Glad to hear that this is happening in our community. Glad to hear, honestly, that you're leading the charge. And I wish it much success. And I know you'll give it everything you got to see that happen.
Will do.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Lewis.
Thank you.
Until next time.
Dr. Jones Lewis, go ahead and correct him. You ain't got to be scared.
I'm not scared.
Her last name is Jones Lewis.
We appreciate you, though. We'll
Thank
talk
you.
to you soon.
All right.
We live in a society in which structural racism is a very real thing. We are all dealing with that in every aspect of our lives, and the media is a reflection of our community.
Historically, black people have been portrayed a certain way in the media to justify normative assumptions around political and social issues.
More black people behind the cameras, in front of the cameras, more producers, more people of color producing, so they can go and get the content that's needed so they can highlight our attributes.
I've been in this industry for 15 years, and I've seen firsthand how our voices just aren't heard. Even if you're in the newsroom, sometimes you get completely ignored and stereotypes are allowed to perpetuate. And one thing we want to do is combat that and also bring information to people so they can be as informed as possible when choices are made in this city, so they can do whatever they can to get their voices heard.
What I believe can be done about the situation is to have more people of color creating news stories, more people who have a interest in and a social consciousness that relates to the stories that they're telling.
Charlottesville Tomorrow looks at these issues. We can present them on IMHO. Vinegar Hill Magazine can take that a step further, and just together we can just make this thing that can be an example of how we can change the media landscape, how we can be more inclusive to get these voices in, to get these people heard. That's just one thing that doesn't happen in so many places, and it's a shame.
We think we live in a society that's very progressive, and we're talking about equity and diversity and inclusion and all these things. Still, the way that black people, and I would say, and I would argue, especially black men, are portrayed by the media is incredibly dangerous, and you've seen the sort of tangible violence that it's led to over the past year.
The community can support the SIM project by first and foremost giving us an opportunity. We understand that it can be difficult to give trust right now, especially considering the current social and political environment. But this project will only be as successful as the community allows it to be. And so we ask you to give us the opportunity to do the work, critique the work, and make sure that we stay in line with the vision. Another way that the community can get behind the SIM project is through engagement. We want to hear from you. We want to know what you're talking about. We want to put your stories out there. And so whether it's reading the articles written by Charlottesville Tomorrow or Vinegar Hill Magazine, or tuning in to In My Humble Opinion on Sundays on 101.3 Jams from noon to 3 p.m., either way, we want you engaged. We want you to be part of this. The community can also support the SIM project through funding. To learn more about how to support SIM, you can visit our website. Thank you for your support.
We live in a society in which structural racism is a very real thing. We are all dealing with that in every aspect of our lives, and the media is a reflection of our community.
Historically, black people have been portrayed a certain way in the media to justify normative assumptions around political and social issues.
More black people behind the cameras, in front of the cameras, more producers, more people of color producing, so they can go and get the content that's needed so they can highlight our attributes.
I've been in this industry for 15 years, and I've seen firsthand how our voices just aren't heard. Even if you're in the newsroom, sometimes you get completely ignored and stereotypes are allowed to perpetuate. And one thing we want to do is combat that and also bring information to people so they can be as informed as possible when choices are made in this city, so they can do whatever they can to get their voices heard.
What I believe can be done about the situation is to have more people of color creating news stories. More people who have a interest in and a social consciousness that relates to the stories that they're telling.
Charlottesville Tomorrow looks at these issues. We can present them on IMHO. Vinegar Hill Magazine can take that a step further, and just together we can just make this thing that can be an example of how we can change the media landscape, how we can be more inclusive to get these voices in, to get these people heard. That's just one thing that doesn't happen in so many places, and it's a shame.
We think we live in a society that's very progressive, and we're talking about equity and diversity and inclusion and all these things. Still, the way that black people, and I would say, and I would argue especially black men, are portrayed by the media is incredibly dangerous, and you've seen the sort of tangible violence that it's led to over the past year.
The community can support the SIM project by first and foremost giving us an opportunity. We understand that it can be difficult to give trust right now, especially considering the current social and political environment. But this project will only be as successful as the community allows it to be. And so we ask you to give us the opportunity to do the work, critique the work, and make sure that we stay in line with the vision. Another way that the community can get behind the SIM project is through engagement. We want to hear from you. We want to know what you're talking about. We want to put your stories out there. And so whether it's reading the articles written by Charlottesville Tomorrow or Vinegar Hill Magazine, or tuning in to In My Humble Opinion on Sundays on 101.3 Jams from noon to 3 p.m., either way, we want you engaged. We want you to be part of this. The community can also support the SIM project through funding. To learn more about how to support SIM, you can visit our website. Thank you for your support.
We live in a society in which structural racism is a very real thing. We are all dealing with that in every aspect of our lives, and the media is a reflection of our community.
Historically, black people have been portrayed a certain way in the media to justify normative assumptions around political and social issues.
More black people behind the cameras, in front of the cameras, more producers, more people of color producing, so they can go and get the content that's needed so they can highlight our attributes.
I've been in this industry for 15 years, and I've seen firsthand how our voices just aren't heard. Even if you're in the newsroom, sometimes you get completely ignored and stereotypes are allowed to perpetuate. And one thing we want to do is combat that and also bring information to people so they can be as informed as possible when choices are made in this city, so they can do whatever they can to get their voices heard.
What I believe can be done about the situation is to have more people of color creating news stories. More people who have a interest in and a social consciousness that relates to the stories that they're telling.
Charlottesville Tomorrow looks at these issues. We can present them on IMHO. Vinegar Hill Magazine can take that a step further, and just together we can just make this thing that can be an example of how we can change the media landscape, how we can be more inclusive to get these voices in, to get these people heard. That's just one thing that doesn't happen in so many places, and it's a shame.
We think we live in a society that's very progressive, and we're talking about equity and diversity and inclusion and all these things. Still, the way that black people, and I would say, and I would argue, especially black men, are portrayed by the media is incredibly dangerous. And you've seen the sort of tangible violence that it's led to over the past year.
The community can support the SIM project by first and foremost giving us an opportunity. We understand that it can be difficult to give trust right now, especially considering the current social and political environment. But this project will only be as successful as the community allows it to be. And so we ask you to give us the opportunity to do the work, critique the work, and make sure that we stay aligned with the vision. Another way that the community can get behind the SIM project is through engagement. We want to hear from you. We want to know what you're talking about. We want to put your stories out there. And so whether it's reading the articles written by Charlottesville Tomorrow or Vinegar Hill Magazine, or tuning into In My Humble Opinion on Sundays on 101.3 Jams from noon to 3 p.m., either way, we want you engaged. We want you to be part of this. The community can also support the SIM project through funding. To learn more about how to support SIM, you can visit our website. Thank you for your support.
We live in a society in which structural racism is a very real thing. We are all dealing with that in every aspect of our lives, and the media is a reflection of our community.
Historically, black people have been portrayed a certain way in the media to justify normative assumptions around political and social issues.
More black people behind the cameras, in front of the cameras, more producers, more people of color producing, so they can go and get the content that's needed so they can highlight our attributes.
I've been in this industry for 15 years, and I've seen firsthand how our voices just aren't heard. Even if you're in the newsroom, sometimes you get completely ignored and stereotypes are allowed to perpetuate. And one thing we want to do is combat that, and also bring information to people so they can be as informed as possible when choices are made in this city, so they can do whatever they can to get their voices heard.
What I believe can be done about the situation is to have more people of color creating news stories, more people who have a interest in and a social consciousness that relates to the stories that they're telling.
Charlottesville Tomorrow looks at these issues. We can present them on IMHO. Vinegar Hill Magazine can take that a step further, and just together we can just make this thing that can be an example of how we can change the media landscape, how we can be more inclusive to get these voices in, to get these people heard. That's just one thing that doesn't happen in so many places, and it's a shame.
We think we live in a society that's very progressive, and we're talking about equity and diversity and inclusion and all these things. Still, the way that black people, and I would say, and I would argue, especially black men, are portrayed by the media is incredibly dangerous. And you've seen the sort of tangible violence that it's led to over the past year.
IMHO Talk Show.
Right.
It's your boy, Sir Charles.
And Max.
And we are joined right now to continue this conversation, Max. You know, like, I love how things just organically come together. And this is another one of those shows to where, we just had to do our best and let God do the rest. And we was like, you know what? This is a data analytics kind of show. This is the kind of show, and this is a great way to start off the year, Max, as we were talking about, because it's like, all right, 2026, so much has changed, so much is the same. So how are we going to address it? And this gentleman that we have with us right now that we're about to introduce, he is a man that this is going to be a great conversation because he and I disagree a little bit on this, right? It's a little different perspectives, but he is a man where it says you always follow that data. The data answers all the questions. If you have good data, then that means you can get good results, right? And so I'm talking about none other than Caleb Nelson. Caleb, how you doing, my brother?
Good. Thank you for having me on the show.
Yeah, go ahead and get comfy, man. Go ahead and get intimate with that microphone right there. Yeah.
So you're a guy who needs a study done for everything. To tell you what you know.
Yeah, as much data as I can get, I will definitely use.
Right.
So.
Yeah. You know, and I said that in jest because there's a lot of truth to that, right? But it's always interesting, you know, it's kind of like how we were just talking to Dr. Jones Lewis about when you think about community schools, you think about all the stakeholders, right? There's a human element that comes into play with everything. You know, until we start talking about the AI thing, you know, like that's sort of an extension of this conversation, right? But as of right now, the robots have not taken over, right? But
beware.
but you know, but that being said, when it comes to collecting data and the importance of it, now who better than to look at the outlook for this 2026 year, you know, following the good doctor of community schools, but then a man that has contributed to us as well, Max True Charlottesville Inclusive Media. He has been a partner, you know, sharing some of his studies and his work with us, Caleb Nelson. And you're also a board director for Computers for Kids, right?
Yeah, I've been the board chair for C4K for 3 years, and I'm on the board of CIC Community Investment Collaborative, and then Live Arts. So
nice.
If I'm not working or when I'm not working, I try to dedicate my time and effort to the community.
I love it. So
now make that. Hold on for a second before we move on. Make that make sense. Like draw the parallels.
That's what I was going to say.
So we're talking data, we're talking computers, and then live arts.
Very different communities. But I was fortunate to be introduced to Live Arts when they did Ragtime. And I don't know how familiar y'all are with Ragtime, but Ragtime was one of the most successful performances at Live Arts. I think they got the revenue of that show was greater than the revenue of the following 9 shows combined.
Data.
Yeah, exactly. I went straight to it. That changed the community, and this is post August 2017, right? And Ragtime is a very racially sensitive sort of play. If you are familiar with it at all. But yeah, love that community. But I guess a little bit of context and background for myself. I've been in data for 10 years. I did a master's in data science, currently a business intelligence engineer in the tech community. And I guess the one contribution that I've been able to give Charlottesville from a data perspective is an application that's readily available to anybody that has access to the internet called the Charlottesville Crime Data Dashboard. So if you're interested in what is going on in the city in terms of crime and calls into police, you can go to my dashboard to look at data over the past 5 years and really dive into what is going on in your neighborhood, what's going on in your zip code, what's going on your street level from a crime perspective. And I hope to build upon that in the future by incorporating other data sets. So.
And I know that you said you said Charlottesville, but that includes Albemarle County, correct?
So no, the data is strictly for the city.
Just the city.
Limits. I forgot the 5 zip codes or 6 zip codes that includes, but yeah.
Got it.
Now, what got you here, Caleb, as far as because you're very passionate about it, right? And it could do so much good, but was there sort of a social event or something that happened to where, that made you just stop and be like, we need to address this differently? Like what,
That's a good question, Charles. So it was February, I think the last week of February 2025, where we had, I forgot what day exactly, but there was a gentleman that was stopped by the cops. I think he didn't have a license or expired tag, something like that. He dipped off on the cops, hit some cars, ran off on foot, and was apprehended 7 days later. 2 days after that, you had a gentleman near Alumni Hall stab someone, and he was apprehended pretty quickly, I think within 5 hours. That was the first time since the 3 students who were tragically murdered, the school had been, what's the phrase, but put on lockdown. And I, being the very curious person I am, I tried to find a data source or some sort of material that would tell me about crime in the city so I can understand what is going on holistically. I couldn't find a single source that would give me a clear enough picture. So I decided to build a tool myself using data that I thought wasn't being used sufficiently. So the city of Charlottesville actually has data on crime, on arrest, on real estate, on economics, on demographics. And I was able to tap into that data and ultimately build an application that informed me about what was going on in the city from a crime perspective, from a public safety perspective. It wasn't until I actually built it that I realized that it was valuable to anybody, right? And so that's what kind of encouraged me to reach out to, I think I sent an email to you and the Siebel brothers earlier this last year. I reached out to various organizations like nonprofits and stuff. And eventually got the attention of Charlottesville Tomorrow. And that is what kind of, I guess, triggered my relationship with a lot of people that had the same sort of interests or need for understanding about what is going on from a public safety perspective. So that has brought me here. And now I have so many more ideas because I feel like there's more data to collect and more data to get insight from.
Now, has there been any pushback? Have you... like, do you get those calls, where people be disguising their voice and just breathing on the phone because they don't want you exposing this information?
Fortunately not. Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah, no, I don't want to be a target. But if I have to be, I'll do what's best.
Because I'm curious as well about when you look at quantity and, versus quality, right? Philosophically, how do you approach data, and particularly that data? And I say particularly that data, like that you aforementioned, that's kind of, catapulted this, sector of your work, is because we all see those numbers where people will be like, majority of I'm just throwing something out there, for example, majority of Black males are incarcerated, right? But then people will then look at, well, are you talking about the quantity of the number that are in prison, or are you talking about the percentage of the prison population? You know what I mean? So when you look at like quantity versus percentage, right? Philosophically, how do you think data is best presented so that people don't skew it to prove their point? You know what I mean? Because they say numbers don't lie.
Sure.
But it depends how you use the numbers, right?
Yeah. I think I'm understanding where you're going. So
philosophically.
Yeah. So from let me be clear that the application that I built tells you what were the calls into 911 and what were they in regards to, and where did those offenses take place. So if you want to know, if you live in a neighborhood and you want to know what sort of calls went into the police, you can look at the offenses that were called into from your neighborhood, right? Now, I think that you can show that data in a few ways. I think like number of offenses in a neighborhood is a good insight, but what might also be helpful is what percentage of offenses occurred in one neighborhood relative to other neighborhoods. And that would give you an idea of, which neighborhoods are suffering more than others, blase. So I think that the best way to present data is in a very fair and unbiased way. And that was probably what I tried to focus on the most in building the application. I did not want to build something that would push someone towards a perspective or some sort of opinion. I wanted to build an application that would give a user the opportunity to learn about their community and walk away with insights about that community from their exploration, and kind of promote a conversation around what the domain is, which is public safety, using data. So
is there a way to avoid that, though? It seems to me that by looking at the data and I haven't visited your app or your website, but filtering the data, it still can create a certain narrative if the person that looking at it, utilizing it, intends for it to.
Yeah. Someone sees that, I'm just throwing this out there, but someone sees that Fifeville is responsible for like 11% of the offenses in a year. And that 11% is greater than the percentage of other neighborhoods in the area. They might say, oh, well, Fifeville is obviously the problem. Let's actually just focus on addressing a whole bunch of issues in Fifeville and put more police officers in Fifeville. you just came up with a solution that really, in my opinion, doesn't really address the problem.
Okay.
Like, FIFIL could be responsible for a certain percentage of the offenses, but let's actually build a more equitable solution to helping that community not be a victim of something, because you're kind of putting them or making them look like the problem. I think the obviously the sort of data literacy that we have is probably very low. So people might filter for something or see something and come up with unsubstantiated claims or ideas from that data. But I hope to actually prevent that.
Sorry. No, you can finish your thought.
No, I think that was it.
Okay. I want to loop back and make sure I didn't miss something. So were you saying it was both or either or when it comes to your initial input? Is the 911 calls, or is it when an arrest is filed?
It's a great question, Charles. Okay. So there's actually two public safety data sets that the city puts together. One is crime, what they call crime, and the other one is arrest. Okay. Now, I plan on jumping into the arrest data at some point. Okay. But that data is a little bit more sensitive.
Yes.
Because they actually show the names, the race, the gender of individuals that were obviously arrested, right? So that presents me with a moral dilemma, in my opinion, because as a data scientist, I have the choice to mask these individuals' names or not mask those individuals' names. I think the sort of approach that I would take would be to actually anonymize it, just not allow those names to be seen and just be like person A, person B, so on and so forth. But still show that, these individuals are being arrested for X, these individuals are being arrested for Y. And just to, because I think the crime data is of course important. But what is also important is, what are people actually getting arrested for? And that paints a kind of bigger picture. Just think of it as a puzzle. Like right now I have one piece, and if I had another piece, which would be represented by arrest, we have a clear, not a complete, but a clearer understanding of the puzzle of society, of our community.
Yes. And in my perspective, Max, is that the crime data, I feel like would be more reliable versus the arrest, right? Because when you look at arrests, then that adds the nuance, right? Or the factor of, is that neighborhood being over policed? So it may not necessarily be that there's more crime in the neighborhood, but if you're being over policed, that's automatically going to lend you more arrests, right?
That's a great idea that can be tested. And I think that sort of test is what we want to do. So if let's say that you have let's go back to the FIFO, and I'm only using FIFO because I live in FIFO.
Yeah, shouts out the FIFO.
Yeah, for sure. Let's say that 10% of the offenses occur in FIFO, right? But then you have, hypothetically, I do not know, 20% of all arrests occur in FIFO. Okay, so you have FIFO being responsible for a certain percentage of crime that is reported, and then double the percentage in arrest. To determine if that is a problem or not, if that is what someone might call fair, we should dive into the data. If the data gives us reason to believe that we are suffering from something unfairly, then that needs to be a public discussion. And the good thing about that sort of research coming before a public discussion is that now you have more or less a very much so supported idea to address in the public. This is a problem. This is a research. We use, statistics, so on and so forth, to come to an idea, and we want to present this idea to understand why is it happening. So I like your idea about the crime being more reliable. Although I wouldn't necessarily put it that way. I think that having crime data and arrest data would allow us to have a greater understanding of our community.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, two things come to mind as you were talking. The first is, of course, that by providing this information to members of the community, you forfeit the ability to kind of control how they choose to use it. So while your intention is to provoke understanding and conversation and hopefully a solution to a problem, others may very well use it as a tool to support the argument that this particular neighborhood with that these particular type of people happen to live in are more problematic, and here is the reason for that argument, the basis for that argument, so that it just came to mind as you were talking about your hopes for providing the data.
If I may interject, you provide one platform for everybody to use. If you have a certain claim and that claim cannot be supported well, now it is a debate. Now there is discourse. And if you want to have very strong opinions, and if you want to support your claims, come to the table prepared. Otherwise, I would suggest that you sit back and just listen. So yeah, I can see how it can be used in a malicious manner. And I honestly expect that and will always expect that. But you will probably be challenged. And that challenge is what we need in our community.
The other thing I wanted to note is that I could understand a person's argument that it may be worthwhile to include the ethnicity of the individuals who are charged with a crime or arrested, because it could further lend some basis or proof that in a certain group, a certain neighborhood or a group of people are arrested at a much higher rate than others, And I understand your argument for not including that information, but
I definitely would not exclude the race attribute from the data. My comment earlier was names of individuals. In my day-to-day work, I cannot see people's names in data.
I misunderstood then. Misunderstood.
And
the more data, the better, right?
Yeah, but there are laws and regulations preventing personally identifiable data to be, readily available to the public. So I'd like to respect that as much as I could.
I want to thank you for everything that you're doing today.
For sure. Yeah.
Like I was listening to y'all when I was out doing something, and y'all having a very good interview. It was giving me a lot of triggers, listening to the three of y'all. And for me, the pushback I would have is when Charles said more data, better. It's not in America because of racism. Data brings on racism. And then when I believe Max was talking about adding the ethnicities of the people, the data I would like to see is, let's say we got 10 officers, 8 white, 1 black, 1 Hispanic, right? I'd like to see, if you arrest 10 people, how many of them look like what? That's the data I would want to see. But I also know, like looking at what happened to that thing over in Minnesota, is when you expose certain biases, then you're going to get something past pushback, which is you're going to run into racism. I believe that all officers, and this is just Razor's opinion, right? I believe that the majority of officers are racist. I don't believe, and that's including the black ones, I don't believe that the majority of officers are bigots. I believe that when they do go out to do their job, they look to see what is going to keep their sector the most safe. So then the data that would come from that is, okay, if you have, 5 traffic stops to whatever you have, what do those individuals look like? And from that point, you can decide whether the Ku Klux Klan is still running the police departments in America,
That's a good point. So I think your point then is that the crime numbers could be accurate, right? But then it's kind of the human element is like, why is the crime that high? It's not, and it's not necessarily because a majority that's more dense with African Americans is the problem. It could be because they're being profiled, right? So then that's what's like pushing your data, is because they're being profiled, not because they're necessarily doing more illegal activity. Is that?
Yeah, but the blacks cannot, black people, the blacks, I sound 1940, my bad. African American people, black people, whatever title you choose to give them, do not control any sector. If you're talking about a 12.5 mile spot here in Charlottesville, and I'm gonna just use one that I know, Hardy Drive is only 400 yards long. You can't call that a sector of the city. You know what I'm saying? It's
I mean, it is, but it's small. But
it's smaller than like the high school football field or the land on the football field. So if we got 50 officers that the majority of their arrests are coming from that, you're shooting. It's like shooting fish in a barrel. You know, so those are the numbers that really are going to tell you what you're dealing with, because once it goes over to the racist mindset, then the data is only going to show that the system is working. And if the system of oppression is what everything is built on, it's never going to change.
I understand that. I can't fully agree with it, mainly because I feel like the only way that we can understand if there are bias operations bias operations going on within a community, we have to look at the data. So when Charles said the more data the better, I imagine looking at that data to uncover, which communities may be targeted, which communities may not be targeted. These are ideas that need to be tested, and if after testing they are actually very much so believable, you can go to whoever is responsible for those operations and demand change. Now you have sufficient reason to, I don't want to use the word attack, but debate, officials or what is the word I'm looking for? Someone who has authority over, a certain jurisdiction or whatever, and say, hey, these are the things that we've noticed. This is the data that you are actually responsible for and putting together. We think this needs to be looked at and possibly changed because this seems very unfavorable and unfair.
I appreciate what you created, but my grandparents knew everything that's in your data before there was ever this thing that you created. Like, we didn't need to, I could have thrown a number. Now, this isn't discrediting anything you say, and I hope that you don't look at it like that way. Yep. I can say 15%. I could just make up those numbers and get them, Charles, to print them out on a piece of paper and turn them in. I already knew beforehand of the disproportions that you're talking about because we lived them, right? And they know because they watch them, That's the reason when the 911s call in that the little black kid that don't look like he can be over here is walking through a neighborhood and get killed with some Skittles in his hand. You know what I'm saying? Because these things already exist. What I appreciate what you're doing by saying, okay, now we have data and paperwork, right? But the fact of the matter is now we have to get from what you're doing to the people in the judicial system that are going to make it. And they don't care because they're making money off of it,
So it's like the cause and effect, because I was actually just thinking that. And I think I hear what you're saying. So like Caleb, sort of the evolution of the data, right, is because it's almost like, okay, so the data is telling us sort of where we are and what's happening and how much of it is happening. Yeah. Right. But then how do we take that data and actually get to the root of the problem, right? Because it's not enough to say this is where the crime is happening at, right? And then act on that. When I feel like as a community, we want data. We want to take data to say what needs to be addressed to prevent the crime. You follow what I'm saying? And like, so we just gotta make sure that we're using the data.
And if I want, my hope is that you have an experience. The data supports that experience, and the data is actually produced by the institution that is responsible for the community. You are using their own asset to tell them that what you're doing is wrong. Yeah. I think that only would empower communities. Without that data, you have your experience. With the data, you have the experience and the asset that can support your experience. And I think that's an ironclad position to hold.
And for me, because I'm the people that you're talking about, that the data is based off of. For sure. Is that I used to be. No. I'm still that person because I haven't figured out how to get them to care about the data that you're going to give them and look past my black skin.
But he does have a fair point, because those decision makers don't operate in our stories and feelings. If they operate at all, it's going to be in the data and the hard facts.
The data that they own. that the institutions own, like
that they create.
Like we are represented in the data, but they are producing the data. If the data is wrong, you're producing it. If the data is right and it supports our claims, well, now you must change. It's like
that's where I'm lost at.
That's
I'm with you.
For sure.
I guess now I fully understand where my dilemma is that I'm 100% with everything that you said. It's just that when I look across the table, I see the benefit of keeping people that look like me and people that have same skin tone as me that may speak a different language at a certain level, regardless if it's Hispanic, if it's African, if it's Venezuela, whatever it is, because of the benefit of keeping you separated, arguing, fighting, and in the prisons. Like, how can 13% of people be 95% of the prison thing? Like, that's just saying that the color of your skin or has dictated your path here in America, unless you sell out.
And to sort of like turn the corner, like on that point, makes me think about examples like the license plate readers, or even like the Police Civilian Review Board, right? To my knowledge, and anybody correct me if I'm wrong, but to my knowledge is those are entities that are supposed to take data and then figure out and sort of give that oversight of being like, okay, like we're seeing this happen at this rate and we're tracking it. All right, now how do we improve these situations based on this? So what I think I'm hearing Razor saying is that we don't trust the people that's handling the data, right? So then when we look at oversight, like how do we better manage this thing, right? Because you can't have oversight, but like what did you say, like the fox can't rule the hen house, right? You remember that old saying? You know, so it's like, how do we take the data and provide it to our system, but still have that oversight to make sure that it's rightfully being sorted? You know what I mean? And like, I understand that that's a step outside of just collecting data, but like, it's really of the utmost importance, right? Like to know that the people that are sharing the data are people who don't have skin in that game, that may have the prejudices or, you know, or
if they don't look like us, they got skin in the game,
right?
Automatically. For them, their kids or anybody else. Like, that's just my mind. I want my mindset to be wrong, but my lived experience, my lived experiences tells me that it will never change.
Yeah, and that's why I'm taking a step beyond us just having the data, right? Like when we think about oversight of how we then utilize that data to hopefully make things better. So let's just say that we're in a perfect world, right? Like, what do we need to be able to take data that folks like Caleb collect and to change for the better based on it, whether it's showing that people of color are disproportionate in any particular area of crime. Let's say that's the case, right? How do we then take that data ultimately to not just incarcerate, but to rehabilitate, right?
I'd like to ask Caleb a question. Can you tell us what the data, when you launched this platform early part of 2025, showed you in comparison to what it's showing you now? Could you give us like a brief summary of that?
Yeah, so I've only been tracking it since February 2025, and I can tell you that the most common offense is hit and runs. Believe it or not, I think it's about 9.8% of crimes. Yeah, and you can imagine, and if you, on the app, you have offenses by crime, but then you could also look at the geographic location of those offenses. And if you just filter on hit and runs, just think of any intersection with a lot of traffic. That's where those, so it kind of makes sense that hit and runs would occur at near highways and all that sort of stuff, not in, well, hopefully roads near schools and stuff like that. But I wanted to hop on something that you said earlier. I think the only way to provide or carry out oversight is to track the data that the institution is creating. If over time you're tracking that data and there are some strange occurrences, that needs to be raised. And I can't imagine any better form of oversight than that. Better oversight would be more data, right? So let's say you have crime data, you have arrest data. Let's also look at if we have it, health disparity data,
Yes,
educational
that's
data.
key.
And the unique thing about all these, what I will call like domains of data, is that when you layer them together, you will over time have a more complete picture of society and may be able to walk away with like conclusions that are along the lines of, well, you know, you have certain amount of crimes or certain types of crimes going on in a particular area, and then you have like also poor educational outcomes in those schools that are in those same communities.
Right.
Yeah, these are now like very accurate conclusions of your community. And the representatives that we have elected to take care of those said community, I think, are responsible for listening to that and using that same data to improve upon it.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So that to me is like, again, I hate to use the word again, like the same word, but like ironclad arguments and a very strong position to hold that allows you to demand change. So yeah.
No, that makes total sense. You know, it makes me think about something that Chief Kachis has repeatedly said, which is like the holistic approach to community improvement and community partnerships is like a soccer field. And he compared law enforcement to a goalie, right? Once the ball gets to the goalie has one job, right? And so I think that's that's a parallel to data analysis that we're talking about. It's like we could take that data, we can say this and this is happening, and we can prove it, but then we then shouldn't expect police to get called. When police get a call to report to a crime, then they're doing their job to go figure out who the criminal is, and their job is to then detain that criminal if they're committing a crime, if they've been proven to commit a crime with that. I think too many times. And please don't get me wrong, I'm not excusing police at all, because we know that there's bad apples, right? But I'm saying, and we can even say that the structure itself is corrupt. But besides that, if they have their job to do, then we can't just take the data of like crime rates and stuff and say, well, like the police shouldn't be doing their job. There's other people in our community that need to take this data and be like, this is what we need to fix in our community. And your office is supposed to be taking care of that. That's not police's job to take care of fixing that element that this data is showing us that is a factor to these crime rates. Whether it's education, healthcare.
There's so much that you have to consider.
Yeah,
there's
poverty,
so much
whatever.
That's what I'm saying. Like the data that we turn in to say, okay, these are the disparities that we have, right? And like using Chief Kachis' thing, like the police are the goalie, right? But nobody wants to talk about the condition of the field. And that's the problem, right? So as long as I'm powerful enough to tell you, okay, you can't talk about the condition of the field because I'm not going to let you into the stadium, you know, and then I'm going to make sure the stadium isn't on a bus route, you know, and then see, I got a smart wife. I learned a lot. So these are the things where I have my problems at. So when I sound like I am like all is lost, it's not that. It's just that I'm starting to become more of the mindset, especially as my youngest two get older, is that you have to be self-sufficient and twice as good. I'm going back to my grandfather's way, twice as good to get half the recognition, right? I want my kids to be tough, right? And I understand that the way that you weaken the men of our community is to make them not learn from other men in their community. It was the same thing. It's buck breaking all over again, right? So you make the person who loves you the most keep you from going out into danger, which also keeps you from growing. You know what I'm saying? So they have figured a way to take an oak tree and put it in a potted plant. It's still an oak tree, but it'll never become what it's supposed to be. And that's the problem that I have with, why can't I go and be planted by living waters with correct sun so I can see what I can be, so I can be the greatest for my community? And the reason is because if I put you in this plant, I can market you and sell you to other people.
Oh, yes,
right. So that's where so that's why I said the more data is only going to make the untrained person angry.
Untrained.
And then once you become angry, now the police can come in and say you're unruly.
Right.
And then if you're unruly, now we can put you back into the prison system. Right.
Yeah.
So
you're
that's my only problem.
Right. Yeah. The environment is created to then generate data to make you look bad.
Right.
Right.
And then you're the one who's bringing notice to it. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. You're saying, look at the disparities over. Oh, I'm sorry. You're saying, look at the disparities over here. But at the same time, you're also getting other people that don't care nothing about you to only look at the media to show, okay, well, they locked up Joseph Johnson from such and such, instead of when they read their paper, young male who was a UVA graduate student took a bad turn. You know what I'm saying? Like, and nobody can say nothing because we're not in positions where we really control these things. And I don't mean to be bad, but even the things that we do, you only get a portion of the money that comes in for the organizations that you're part of and the things that you're creating. You know, like, I mean, that's not knocking, that's just truth. You know, and that's the problem I had with the data.
Yeah. Well, I have a quick philosophical one before Max, I guess, closes out in her fashion.
Question.
Yeah, whatever you got. Do you believe, like, just with your knowledge, that license plate readers are a good way to track traffic of criminals? Because my understanding is that they will see if a vehicle is going into certain crime areas a lot. Like, do you feel like that, you know, like, again, like, just from your impression of it, like, do you think that's a good way to track that data?
I think there's a potential for abuse for sure.
Okay.
And that potential for abuse is a massive uncertainty, right? And uncertainties present you with dangers. So, I think there's I think there's opportunity for something unfavorable to occur.
That's fair. Yeah.
I'm actually going to ask you a question that I'm hoping to get you to kind of look at data in a way that you wouldn't typically look at it, which is kind of your projections of the adverse effect that AI may have on data.
The AI is a man-made system. So any flaws that come from men are going to reveal themselves in their systems.
Okay.
So what that means to me is the system needs to be far more equitable and far more people-focused. So I hope to be the creator of intelligence platforms that are more people-focused.
Okay.
Because then you have an AI system that is more of a teammate than an opponent, if we're keeping with the soccer reference. Right. So that's how I imagine. I don't know if y'all are familiar, but the first soap dispensers, they were trained on white hands. So if you put your hand under a soap, it never dispensed soap. That is a very simple problem, right?
Okay, yeah. I didn't know that.
No, it's very simple. If you train the soap dispenser on darker hands, you will get soap. So, and these are algorithms. These are algorithms that have been contributing to facial recognition. These are algorithms that have, so like the same thing could be said for facial recognition. Early facial recognition systems, they had trouble tracking black faces because they weren't trained on black faces. I think if we know anything about the history of cameras were always adapted to white skin. So black people in photos historically, they were not seen as well as white faces, right? So these are all man-made systems with flaws that came from the men that created them, right? So what that tells me is that I need to be the man that creates a system that is very aware of those sort of things.
Let him cook. Amen to that.
Good stuff. Good stuff.
Indeed. So, but you made me think, though, the proponents of artificial intelligence would say that we are taking the best and, you know, and the brightest and everything that's right from humans, and the goal of AI is to put everything that's right and correct and knowledgeable in the computer, and everything that's actually flawed and false, we're not putting it in it, so that AI becomes the supreme entity that can always judge rightfully.
That can't be true. Because if you let's go back to the soap dispenser issue, right? How many black people or how many people of color do you think were in the room when the technology was created for the soap dispenser? Probably very few. There were no people that said, hey, maybe we should train these algorithms on a diverse set of hands. That system, no matter how whatever deep learning techniques or whatever sort of data that has access to, is always going to be flawed in that manner unless it considers alternative opinions, alternative ideas, and alternative data. So the only way that you could create a strong system, I don't think there's a such thing as a superior system, is if you have a very diverse collective intelligence that is contributing to the build of those AI systems. So I don't think I can build something superior. I'm pretty confident I can build something better.
Charles, not even like he went to the soap dispenser. I'm gonna go back to the books. History itself is flawed.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? So if we can't even put it in books, in writings, if we have to take, if we go back to where the civilization was created, and then we have to hide it in places and then repaint it and say what it is, or we take things like that was a negative and then it becomes popular and then it's taken from us again. You know what I'm saying? Anything from like the word cowboy to anything else. So AI is just going to be magnified because at least I had to find the book to open it to see that it was improper. AI goes all across the country because it's a digital network. So I see this because we don't, in the words of Eddie, because we don't think for ourselves all the time and we ingest the information that's just given to us because it's the easiest. I think that AI is going to be even more detrimental than the internet.
And we have a whole current generation that operates that way. Think about it.
It started with the filters on the pictures. Nino, everybody was unhappy about how they look in a picture, so they put a filter to it. So if I can do a AI version of myself and it looks good and it sounds good, then I can fake put my message out there.
She got some Nino.
Don't hide. Get on over here. Get a Max.
Question for you, Nino, that just came up. So we're talking about AI, right? Do you come on up here? Come on up here. Do you think that it's dangerous more so to your generation and the next generation because you may be too dependent on technology? I think that's the synopsis of what we were just saying. Right? Of like, what I'm getting at?
Yeah.
Like, what's your opinion on AI?
All right. So my opinion on AI is, first of all, and I'd like to hear your opinion. I feel like, of course, things have been building up to people even thought it would happen, but I feel like it came around like very fast. Like it was the last 2 years or so. It really got in depth and very detailed. And you could, I've seen a video where it's like Tupac was recording in his house or something. So it's like, I feel like that turnaround came around very fast to where now everybody's like in awe or shock, and not so much adapting to it. They're more so kind of just going with the course of wherever it's going to take us, it's going to take us, which is not allowing someone to get ahead of it. And I assume that that's kind of the purpose of it, is to not get ahead of it. But more so to the point that you were asking, I feel like it's very dangerous to the fact that I was watching something the other day and someone had brought up a point where you could say this person committed this crime and they can't prove their innocence until it's kind of like guilty until you prove yourself innocent, not vice versa, because you have to basically go against this AI or this computer from wherever this computer or creator is that developed that. So I feel like dangerous, definitely, but I feel like there's a way if people like yourself or other data collectors can definitely find a way to get on the forefront or what's the word I'm looking for? Not like decoded, not that, but kind of like
own the process of development, so it's a little bit more responsible.
Exactly. Yeah. So, so that's kind of my opinion on that. But I did want to touch something that's kind of like rewinding, to the project that you created. So to Razor over there, I feel like your point you were trying to come across to his project was, you kept saying, people of my skin, my color, not to discredit, what we've been through and continue to face as African Americans, but I don't feel like that's the whole objective of his data, which I know that can come across as people are automatically looking at that to be a potential negative aspect of what he's, trying to create. That being African Americans and now Hispanics, feeling that. So I just wanted to point that out, to the point of, if you feel like that is a negative effect that can come from that, how can we get ahead of that so that doesn't happen, but he still is able to create that data and have that data out there so that we can look at that and maybe it does highlight to us or people who feel the same as you, that African Americans are having these crimes in these I don't know if he said 4 or 5 zip codes that, and I'm assuming your goal for this app is to expand. Clearly,
absolutely.
Yeah. So we're only really talking about Charlottesville, but let's talk about Chicago. You know, talk about LA and things like that. What about the drug addicts and things that are breaking into cars, breaking into homes just to get a $5 or this and that? It kind of feels like you were saying that only is African Americans, or that like, the potential could be that it's showing only, or they're only looking at the African Americans that are doing that.
Yeah, that's the problem I had with data. Right. Is like data can be gathered by excellent people like him, but it also gets filtered by the time that it gets up to, even to the public. Yeah, because they say, oh, we don't need all this. This is a little too much. And we cut it down. I watch it happen all the time. Right. So I equate the data and the great work that he's doing to when people create guns. Guns are supposed to defend yourself and hunt and, sport, but they can be, for the small percentage that use them for the wrong purpose, they pretty much dictate what the landscape looks like. And that's the way I look at the gathering of data. Okay. Yeah.
Remind me of your name? Nino?
Yeah.
Nino. Thank you for the contribution. I really appreciate it. I'd like to say that a couple things. One, expansion to cities, other cities isn't my goal quite yet. I agreed when you said expansion, mainly because I thought that expansion should mean including other aspects of our current community. So let me be clear. Crime in Charlottesville is just one piece of a puzzle.
Yeah.
There are many pieces, hundreds, 1,000-piece puzzle, right? We need to look at a whole bunch of other domains that will help us have a clearer picture on crime. If you have an understanding of education, if you have an understanding of other areas of governance, if you have an understanding of health disparities, if you have an understanding on infrastructure and political participation, all these sort of things, you have a clearer understanding of society, but an even deeper understanding of crime and all the individual domains. So my hope is to develop and design systems that are a little bit more equitable. And get rid of those biases, and then be able to walk away with insights that can contribute to policy change, community change, institutional change. So that's what I envision.
Good stuff. Thank you, Nino.
Thank you, Nino.
Yeah, very thoughtful. Good job.
All right, Ms. Max.
Yeah, that's all we got. Thank you, Caleb.
Absolutely, my pleasure.
It's a great conversation. Hope to have you back, especially as you continue to develop and modify the data system that you've created. We'd love to talk with you more about it.
Absolutely, yeah.
All right.
Always around.
Yeah, thank you. We'll be right back. Stay with us, family.
I am H.O.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis, only on 101.3 Jams.
We live in a society in which structural racism is a very real thing. We are all dealing with that in every aspect of our lives, and the media is a reflection of our community.
Historically, Black people have been portrayed a certain way in the media to justify normative assumptions around political and social issues.
More Black people behind the cameras, in front of the cameras, more producers, more people of color producing, so they can go and get the content that's needed so they can highlight our attributes.
I've been in this industry for 15 years, and I've seen firsthand how our voices just aren't heard. Even if you're in the newsroom, sometimes you get completely ignored and stereotypes are allowed to perpetuate. And one thing we want to do is combat that and also bring information to people so they can be as informed as possible when choices are made in the city, so they can do whatever they can to get their voices heard.
What I believe can be done about the situation is to have more people of color creating news stories, more people who have a interest in and a social consciousness that relates to the stories that they're telling.
Charlottesville Tomorrow looks at these issues. We can present them on IMHO. Vinegar Hill Magazine can take that a step further, and just together we can just make this thing that can be an example of how we can change the media landscape, how we can be more inclusive to get these voices in, to get these people heard. That's just one thing that doesn't happen in so many places, and it's a shame.
We think we live in a society that's very progressive, and we're talking about equity and diversity and inclusion and all these things. Still, the way that black people, and I would say, and I would argue, especially black men, are portrayed by the media is incredibly dangerous, and you've seen the sort of tangible violence that it's led to over the past year.
The community can support the SIM project by first and foremost giving us an opportunity. We understand that it can be difficult to give trust right now, especially considering the current social and political environment. But this project will only be as successful as the community allows it to be. And so we ask you to give us the opportunity to do the work, critique the work, and make sure that we stay aligned with the vision. Another way that the community can get behind the SIM project is through engagement. We want to hear from you. We want to know what you're talking about. We want to put your stories out there. And so whether it's reading the articles written by Charlottesville Tomorrow or Vinegar Hill Magazine, or tuning in to In My Humble Opinion on Sundays on 101.3 Jams from noon to 3 p.m., either way, we want you engaged. We want you to be part of this. The community can also support the SIM project through funding. To learn more about how to support SIM, you can visit our website. Thank you for your support.
We live in a society in which structural racism is a very real thing. We are all dealing with that in every aspect of our lives, and the media is a reflection of our community.
Historically, black people have been portrayed a certain way in the media to justify normative assumptions around political and social issues.
More black people behind the cameras, in front of the cameras, more producers, more people of color producing, so they can go and get the content that's needed so they can highlight our attributes.
I've been in this industry for 15 years, and I've seen firsthand how our voices just aren't heard. Even if you're in the newsroom, sometimes you get completely ignored and stereotypes are allowed to perpetuate. And one thing we want to do is combat that and also bring information to people so they can be as informed as possible when choices are made in the city, so they can do whatever they can to get their voices heard.
What I believe can be done about the situation is to have more people of color creating news stories, more people who have a interest in and a social consciousness that relates to the stories that they're telling.
Charlottesville Tomorrow looks at these issues. We can present them on IMHO. Vinegar Hill Magazine can take that a step further, and just together we can just make this thing that can be an example of how we can change the media landscape, how we can be more inclusive to get these voices in, to get these people heard. That's just one thing that doesn't happen in so many places, and it's a shame.
We think we live in a society that's very progressive, and we're talking about equity and diversity and inclusion and all these things. Still, the way that black people, and I would say, and I would argue, especially black men, are portrayed by the media is incredibly dangerous, and you've seen the sort of tangible violence that it's led to over the past year.
The community can support the SIM project by first and foremost giving us an opportunity. We understand that it can be difficult to give trust right now, especially considering the current social and political environment. But this project will only be as successful as the community allows it to be. And so we ask you to give us the opportunity to do the work, critique the work, and make sure that we stay in line with the vision. Another way that the community can get behind the SIM project is through engagement. We want to hear from you. We want to know what you're talking about. We want to put your stories out there. And so whether it's reading the articles written by Charlottesville Tomorrow or Vinegar Hill Magazine, or tuning in to In My Humble Opinion on Sundays on 101.3 Jams from noon to 3 p.m., either way, we want you engaged. We want you to be part of this. The community can also support the SIM project through funding. To learn more about how to support SIM, you can visit our website. Thank you for your support.
We live in a society in which structural racism is a very real thing. We are all dealing with that in every aspect of our lives, and the media is a reflection of our community.
Historically, black people have been portrayed a certain way in the media to justify normative assumptions around political and social issues.
More black people behind the cameras, in front of the cameras, more producers, more people of color producing, so they can go and get the content that's needed so they can highlight our attributes.
I've been in this industry for 15 years, and I've seen firsthand how our voices just aren't heard. Even if you're in the newsroom, sometimes you get completely ignored and stereotypes are allowed to perpetuate. And one thing we want to do is combat that, and also bring information to people so they can be as informed as possible when choices are made in this city, so they can do whatever they can to get their voices heard.
What I believe can be done about the situation is to have more people of color creating news stories, more people who have a interest in and a social consciousness that relates to the stories that they're telling.
Charlottesville Tomorrow looks at these issues. We can present them on IMHO.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis, only on 101.3 Jams.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis. Only on 101.3 Jams.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Let's see. You know how we do. IMHO Talk Show.
That's right.
Sir Charles.
Miss Max.
Razor.
That's right.
We're all here.
We here. We still standing. You know how it goes. So,
Hey, Charles, I might be too hot.
you think so?
Yeah, I'm too hot.
That's right. Yeah. Because we be having these soft-spoken people in here, and then the baritone steps up, and he be like all up on the microphone. Yeah. So we gotta break it down sometime. So yeah, that is it. Kind of is what it is. But man, Miss Max.
Mm-hmm.
How about I kick it over to you? What we doing this segment, Miss Max?
I think we're gonna do an Ask Max. It's gonna be a bit of a round robin. We're trying to get back to some of our show favorites. I know you all missed that. I know you all misheard me come up with these questions and ask these two crazies what they think about it. But we're gonna do a version of that today. Got a lot of hot topics in the news. A lot of issues that I'm sure folks have a lot of different opinions on. Some we agree with, some we disagree with. First being the ICE shooting that took place in Minnesota. Individual's name, Good is the last name. I'm sorry, I want to give her respect by
Renee
Nicole Good. Was shot and killed by an ICE agent while ICE was there to essentially like extricate or arrest immigrants, people in this country illegally. It's important to note that she, and everybody should be aware of this, that she's a white female. And if you saw it play out, the situation play out on the news, her vehicle was kind of positioned parallel across a street, blocking some ICE agents from passing through. A few of them got out of vehicle to address her. And in that altercation, she was shot and killed. The administration has said that it was, at least at this time, ruled as a rightful and just response to the situation because Ms. Good had attempted to drive her vehicle in the direction of an ICE agent that was standing in front of it, putting him in danger. And I guess out of fear for his life, he then shot and killed her, but shot her 3 times.
Well, most of us seen the video. Is that what the video say? I understand that's what the report was. Like, but is that your interpretation of the video? Or do you feel like that's accurate, that aligns? I'm just curious.
No. Well, I definitely don't agree with the position of the administration. What I saw was a situation that could have been avoided altogether. And if you're asking me, I saw, well, I mean, he wasn't necessarily right in front of it. And why did he have to shoot so many times? And it's clear that her intention was not to hit him. Those are all responses that I had to seeing the video.
We looking at me for dog. We looking at me for dog.
Cause it's like I didn't know about it until Max showed it to me, right? And I'm going back. This is how I judge the majority of situations at this age. I take out the white lady, I stick in a black male.
Okay.
Right. And what would people look at and say? Now, to my understanding, one, I feel bad that this lady lost her life. Let me make sure I say that.
Of course.
But if I go back and I take her out and I put me in there, what is going to be said? Once the police jumped out and grabbed the door handle, if I pull off, I'm evading the police. So, and that's what's going to get said by everybody that's looking at it. He's trying to elude.
Okay.
Right? So if that is what you see at that point, everything that comes behind that is a result of the decision that was made to evade or elude the police. And unfortunately, it ended up taking the life of somebody.
Yeah.
Now, that's where I'm one of those type people. So like when people start to argue and somebody go too far or whatever, you say, oh, that's wrong. How did it start? And anything that comes behind that is just a prerequisite of, just is a result of whatever took place in my mind in every situation in life. That's just the way that I handle it. So that's what I did. If you substitute her for somebody else that is acceptable at times to be killed, or people say, what did they used to say? You need to learn to comply, comply, right? So at that point, if I'm truly judging it without color, without gender, once the police got out and put his hand on the door handle, and I decided to elude or evade the police, anything is possible at that time. It just ended up with the ultimate sacrifice.
Yeah. I mean, I do understand that anything is possible at that time. I still say that I do not feel that and wish it hadn't ended up deadly though.
Right.
And we're different in the way that when I saw the video, the skin color mattered this much to me. What mattered was there was someone's spouse, someone's child, someone's parent who was killed unnecessarily. And as controversial as this may sound, I felt the same way, though I disagreed with his ideology, but I felt the same way when Charlie Kirk was murdered. That did not have to happen. That should not have happened. And so I don't know if this is a matter of bad training, bad protocol. We've all heard the arguments of how closely the officer was shooting in the direction of not just the person driving the vehicle, but a fellow ICE agent. Just in my opinion, did not have to end up deadly. It did not. And to be shot 3 times, like at the point where you're on the side of the vehicle, what is the point of continuing to shoot the individual?
I just want to make a point.
What's up?
Razor, it wasn't police. I think like that has to be taken into account. Let's put how extreme the violence got. They're not police. They have no legal authority to put their hand on your vehicle. Like you mentioned, right, Max? It was a white woman. They weren't there for her. She was blocking the road as a form of protest or whatever you would call it. But they're not police to where I have to abide by anything you're saying. I think that's where a misconception goes when people hear about ICE and police. They think that they have the same, authority that they have. They don't. I feel very strongly on the point that, he shot the 3 times, but and I know you said you didn't watch it until she showed it to you, but if you watch the whole video, at the end, he doesn't even fall to the ground. He like stumbles, the camera like goes a little while, you hear the 3 shots, and at the end of that, he calls her a stupid B word. And also I made the point when you were out the room that he had already been in an altercation or situation like this a year prior, to where another person, in his words, I guess, struck him with the vehicle. Do you not feel like that's a recurring pattern where he thinks that as long as I can get in front of this vehicle, and of course someone who's trying to flee, whether that be an illegal immigrant or a protester or whatever the case may be, that it's fair game. I'm in front of this vehicle. I know you can't do anything. So now we're both in this situation. It's my life or it's your life. I feel like that is a reoccurring thing for him based on just the things that I've seen, that he feels like that's why it can be justified. But my whole point that I want to just make is that they're not police. I think that needs to come across. They don't have the same authority or jurisdiction.
You're right, but think about it. Don't think about it like police officers. Think about it like Secret Service. Think of it about like the ones that we send over there to get bin Laden. Think about ICE is chosen. They choose the ones who are going to be, or like we used to have like PD Task Force 9. They choose the ones that they were complaining about here in the city of Charlottesville. They choose the most aggressive, most outlandish people.
I agree.
And then cover their faces up so that they can teach your kids and serve your food, and you don't know who they are. This is the job. So you're absolutely right. They're not police. These are people that's chosen to administer past the rules and regulations of a police officer, if so need be.
But you make the point that when he came over and grabbed my handle, then I need to abide by his rules as if he were a police officer.
No. What I'm saying is when he came over and grabbed the handle, the ideology is going to be that I should comply. That's what I'm saying. So then no different than if somebody is outside, let's say they don't have anything on and they stand in front of the car. Is there ever a title, a job, or a situation where a pedestrian is less valued than the vehicle?
Well, no, but this is an armed individual. So let's to your point where you're saying that it's a pedestrian.
I'm armed most of the time.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So if you're in front of my vehicle with your brandishing your firearm, and then let alone pulling at my door handle, I have the right to defend myself, whether that be attempting to scare you. Yeah, I understand. It may cost
that's what I'm saying. It might cost you more than what you were willing to pay. Not that it's not about what Black men like me, Charles, teach our children is that make it to the next day, have your day in court. And we forget about that when we're talking about non-Black people. Have your day in court. They might have pulled her out. They might have arrested her. They might have called out her name. They might have did everything, but she would have still been here in order to say how they were wrong. The second that you put yourself in certain situations, it's like going out when we used to go to the go-go at nighttime and everybody high and the girls sweating, dancing, and somebody got shot. Well, this was the thing.
Go ahead.
Old people used to say, like, well, what would you think was going to happen at 1 o'clock in the morning like that when somebody got shot or somebody got beat up or somebody got locked up? So it's that type of ideology where we all tend to, until we get to a certain point, we take color and gender and we apply the rules how we want to be. That's why I said the worst thing in America is a Black male, a dark-skinned Black male in a situation where he's dealing with any people of authority, be it your boss, whatever, right? So that's why I said, when I look at situations like that, I take and put me in that position and say, if I had a did X, Y, Z, what would people say? And if you can say it on me, then you can say it on her.
I just want to clarify my explanation of what happened. I didn't point out that she was a white female for the sake of like differentiating, because I felt like it meant something different.
It matters.
I just was trying to fully explain what had occurred. And I also want to say this, like, she appeared to have given her life for she made the ultimate sacrifice. Like, she was out there for her neighbors. And I want to say that is due some respect and acknowledgement. So I just want to point that out too. But Razor, to your point, I do understand that we live in a world where
authorities have a lot of discretion as to how they act and respond, especially when it comes to law enforcement. And unfortunately, you do have to err on the side of caution because it just might cost you your life.
And surprisingly, I kind of feel like y'all being a little too gentle, especially Razor, because
I don't want y'all phones going off and then telling y'all I don't even have a right to be on the microphone and why am I talking? So I'm trying to be nice to y'all too right here.
No, so thank you, Nino, for your comments as well. Yeah. But the one thing is that like you shouldn't try to change the scenario by saying, let's say that she wasn't a white female, because because if it was a black female, we would not give any kind of or black male.
Black male.
A person of color, I'm gonna say. We would not try to give it any other explanation or or any other parallel. Like we would focus on that. I think we should focus hardly straight on to the fact that it is a white female, and let's talk about the significance of race in this, on how she still was killed. And my thing is that it's because, Nino, they're not police officers, but guess what they are? They are officially employees and representatives of the Federal Department of Justice. So what that means is that they have been emboldened with thinking that nobody can touch them. And if you do, then you're under that guy's, sort of to your point, Razor, of you're like liable for capital punishment because you just killed a federal officer, technically. You follow what I'm saying? And so it's sad that it's at that point, but I think we should be recognized. And these are the times, as much as we talk about, as much as we're pro-black and all that kind of stuff, we realize that we are trying to empower our people to deal with our own things and deal with our own community. But this is something where we all should be coming together on, because we have an anarchist. We have in my opinion, a psychopath. We have somebody that is in charge of this country right now, and then has his minions that he's hiring to administer like just the most unlawful stuff. And I hear the like Congress and senators constantly saying how he's out of line, how he's doing things illegal, not just out of line, not that it's just partisan and I'm the Democrat and he's Republican and I disagree. Our representatives are saying his office is doing straight illegal stuff. And I'm like, so how come he is not being charged?
So do something about it.
How is he not being taken out of office if it is in fact illegal? And I think we as a human race, not black or white, need to be looking at that. And it's like, what is really going on in our system right now, to where people are taking these liberties to where they can do things that are openly against our Constitution, and they have no checks and balances, to where they just administer an all out like martial law.
Well, he just took it back to 1865.
Right. Like, but why aren't we doing anything about it? And when I say we, I'm saying the people who are supposed to be the checks and balances of the White House. Yeah. Right. The people that we elect on our state level are supposed to be making sure that the White House is doing what it's supposed to do. They're saying that they're not. They're saying they're breaking the laws.
Yeah, because they're not charged. But most of them figureheads, though, Charles. Yeah. Most of them, as long as I'll say that you're doing wrong, but behind back offices, if we all having lunch together and my kids are going to good schools and I'm getting land in different areas and it benefits my family legacy, most of them are figureheads, in my opinion, in my humble opinion, you know what I'm saying? So that's why I can't, this isn't going to come out right at all. But like when you said we all need to come together and fight against certain stuff, the reason I don't fight like that as much anymore is because when it's my turn to say, come support me, the same faces that was asking me to support them don't show up when it's time for them to support me. So I don't go out there.
But think about long game though, Razor.
That is long game.
No, check it out what I'm saying. You remember when on Chappelle's show when he said the only way somebody listens to him is if you get a pretty white girl to sing it? Remember that skit? So same kind of thing.
Yeah, but they shot her.
I get it. But the fact is she tragically lost her life. So then that means middle America is going to pay attention because the white lady just got killed.
Yeah, but white women have always got killed.
That's possible.
White women have always got killed when they have black people on their side or when they got their arms around black people. If it was a white lady who did not support people of color, then she might have got some grace. But they have always killed white women who find themselves over there protecting a little too much. Like you don't know.
I was telling people that too.
Yeah,
I was telling people
are scared to say that. You know what I'm saying?
But that I'm sorry, Max. Real quick,
I'm sorry, Max.
Like that real quick. That just to follow up on that. That also, kind of proves my point at the same time, because it's like we do have allies that also struggle and also are
ultimate sacrifice.
Yeah, like also are making sacrifices for the fact of being allies. And I think that sometimes we overlook that because sometimes we get caught up in the minutia so much of how hard it is to be us sometimes, and forgetting that there is others who can lend to our benefit as well. And I just think that we shouldn't overlook, like when our allies also like get the same treatment, and we can't always just say, well, they wouldn't come to our defense, because there are some that do, and some lose their lives for doing so.
The other thing I want to point out about that scenario, and really all that ICE is doing, is the ICE agents covering their faces. That continues to be a conversation, and people are calling for them to uncover their faces, for several different reasons. I mean, you don't know who it is.
The Klan never uncovered their face.
Yeah, but as a federal agent, they ought to be required to do that.
That's what I'm saying, Max. That's why I said 1865. 1865, we know it as the celebration of Juneteenth. May 24th, 1865 was the start of the Ku Klux Klan. They've always covered their faces, right? Now, like we say stuff like they wear suits and they wear robes. Well, they wear Boo Scooby mask, what they already call them, the mask on their face, right? So it's just an evolution. It's just not white. It's a black mask. It's a camouflage mask. It's the same thing. Just because they don't got the hat on top, just because they don't got a point on the top of it, for whatever reason, we're not looking at it like it's the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many factions of it. The people who are carrying out the same atrocities, they come in all flavors, and like they are right here amongst us. They're right here amongst us. So that means that they have jobs and they have places like that we visit and we probably patronize and have no idea. Just like how they said when the Proud Boys and neo-Nazis came to UVA, Razor, I think you echo it as well. They came here because they're comfortable here. They graduated from here.
So when and this is no knock on anything that any of y'all are saying, but when at times it's like we don't look at it for what it really is. Like we look at it for what we got hope for, right? But in order to make change, you at least got to call it exactly what it is, no spin on it, so you can figure out how you're going to really attack it. When you got hope and let's try and let's all this, that, and other, that don't work. Not when you're playing with somebody that will take your life. That's the problem with the way we look at things from our side.
Okay. Next topic of discussion: extradition of Venezuelan President Maduro.
How many of these we trying to get through? We got about 8 minutes.
Well, yeah, we can take a quick break. Let's tackle this one and then take a break.
We good.
So for drug trafficking, does it matter to us? Should we have done it?
Man, do you even need to finish the question, Max? Come on, Max. Look,
yeah.
So check it out. So this is a segue from what we were just talking about. We have an overreaching government, and for some,
what's it really about? Go ahead.
And and some reason it's just more acceptable because America is showing its true colors in so many ways. System is knowing what it's designed to do. It's nothing more than colonizing. We're talking about taking Greenland, right? We are actively taking Venezuela. We have infiltrated Nigeria. And if you look at the facts of the resources that are there, and in the history of this country, and somebody please correct me if I'm wrong, because I know I'm not wrong, we only get ourselves involved in foreign relations when it's something that we're going to benefit from.
I just told Max that.
It's never for the sake of trying to save and help people. And if I'm wrong, somebody got to show me in history books to where you can debunk that, because that is the exact truth. And so it's just so sad, and with whether it's President Obama and whether it's all these advances and whatnot, when all these advances happen and when the world seemed to be opening up, we thought it was going to be kumbaya. But then we see that the corrupt system that exists reared its ugly head. And I heard somebody talk about white supremacy the other day, and they was like, sometimes we just gloss over that term. They was like, it's not even really about a white person being racist. It's more about this social construct that sometimes just keeps us distracted and just use this ghost,
in this figurehead of white supremacy, realizing that there's a certain level to where it's like it's all about the half. It's about like a top 0.5%, not even 1% of people, right? Like it's about this wealth that the average citizen can't even fathom, can't even imagine, and realize that when you follow that money trail, that's what's making the choices in this world, right? And people call it patriotism, and be like, oh, well, you know, America is being the world's protector, the world's police. And Dr. King and others warned us not to go that far.
Yeah.
But I think ultimately, Max, my point is the Venezuela thing is that like that's what we're seeing, and for it to be so blatant, for it to be so acceptable is quite scary. But it's just colonialism.
Yeah. When you say the top 0.5%, it makes perfect sense to me because I wasn't formally trained. I didn't go to college. I didn't do all those type things, right? So what do you look at? You look at the hat. And everything is underneath the hat. It ain't even got to be an umbrella, right? So certain things, when you look at the arts of war, it's a reason that the only place that you really see Make America Great Again is a hat. Because if I can cover the head, I got everything else. It don't matter what the rest of it look like. So that top 5% is like your whole outfit. Only 5% of it is the hat, but it's the placement of it. And if it's over top of the way that you think, and that's what the media does to you. They make you think that something's good, something's bad, something's going on. Like, I mean, and I hate to say it like this, Max, for the people that's worried about Venezuela and you ain't never been past the Mississippi, what are we talking about? You know what I'm saying? Like, why are you even care about that? Can you spell Venezuela? I can't. You know what I'm saying? So why am I going to worry about it? You know what I'm saying? My bad. Go ahead, Max.
I think, okay, we want to break, right?
Hold on, but are we really ready for action though? Right? Like that's the other
action
thing.
On what? Venezuela?
Now, check it out, because the bigger picture to this, Max, is that a lot of what we benefit from as Americans absolutely comes from war. It absolutely comes from taking advantage of other people, whether we want to admit it. And I'm talking about even us three right here in this room. Like, and I think more American citizens need to be honest with themselves and think about when we say no more war and we say stop, going over there and fighting them people, taking their stuff. A lot of us forget that these luxuries that we as Americans have come from corruption, come from an evil government and system that the rest of the world has been trying to tell us forever. Like, hey,
go back farther than that. America itself. Over the Native Americans, over the Moors.
Facts.
It all came from war. Butt whipping teach you more than talking ever could.
Yeah, and there's a reason that when anybody speaks up about how foul we are, I'll say we, then we paint them terrorists. There's a reason why you got to make other folks look. Data, black people. There's a reason you got to make black people look bad.
You got to put color into it.
Because then you got to justify flooding their neighborhoods with drugs. You got to justify locking up their men at like ungodly rates. There's a reason for all this stuff. And it's so sad that right now that we have a president to where people are kind of like, it's like, but he represents this American dream, this system of like, I can be that powerful too. So my bottom line is like, if we really don't like what's going on in Venezuela, then like, are we going to cut back on our oil consumption? Because what's going to happen is gas prices going to go down. And then everybody's going to attribute it to we took over oil in Venezuela. So which one do we want more? Do we want righteousness? And I'm talking to the evangelicals too, the Christians who say that this is the president we should have, and they will kick people out for abortion and transgender surgeries. But do you think killing people and unrightfully taking people's land and resources justifies your lower gas prices? Let's talk about it.
As long as they retitle it, America will accept it. You know what I'm saying? Like we used to call it like Gordell Shaw's with that one thing that they stole the slave block, right? Where we separate families and tell you how much you're worth. Now we call it the JDR system. You know what I'm saying? And just like we always want to blame white people for slavery, who sold them to the white people? No different than who takes us to court to say that the father owes this, the non-custodial owes this much money for this parent. We do the same thing. We just relabel it and then we accept it like it's new. I'm talking too much. I'm sorry.
Hey, you making a point?
All right, let's take a quick break. We're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, it'll be more dialogue with Charles, Max, and Razor. Stay with us.
I am Major Talk Show.
We live in a society in which structural racism is a very real thing. We are all dealing with that in every aspect of our lives, and the media is a reflection of our community.
Historically, black people have been portrayed a certain way in the media to justify normative assumptions around political and social issues.
More black people behind the cameras, in front of the cameras, more producers, more people of color producing, so they can go and get the content that's needed so they can highlight our attributes.
I've been in this industry for 15 years, and I've seen firsthand how our voices just aren't heard. Even if you're in the newsroom, sometimes you get completely ignored and stereotypes are allowed to perpetuate. And one thing we want to do is combat that and also bring information to people so they can be as informed as possible when choices are made in this city, so they can do whatever they can to get their voices heard.
What I believe can be done about the situation is to have more people of color creating news stories. More people who have a interest in and a social consciousness that relates to the stories that they're telling.
Charlottesville Tomorrow looks at these issues. We can present them on IMHO. Vinegar Hill Magazine can take that a step further, and just together we can just make this thing that can be an example of how we can change the media landscape, how we can be more inclusive to get these voices in, to get these people heard. That's just one thing that doesn't happen in so many places, and it's a shame.
We think we live in a society that's very progressive, and we're talking about equity and diversity and inclusion and all these things. Still, the way that black people, and I would say, and I would argue, especially black men, are portrayed by the media is incredibly dangerous, and you've seen the sort of tangible violence that it's led to over the past year.
The community can support the SIM project by first and foremost giving us an opportunity. We understand that it can be difficult to give trust right now, especially considering the current social and political environment. But this project will only be as successful as the community allows it to be. And so we ask you to give us the opportunity to do the work, critique the work, and make sure that we stay in line with the vision. Another way that the community can get behind the SIM project is through engagement. We want to hear from you. We want to know what you're talking about. We want to put your stories out there. And so whether it's reading the articles written by Charlottesville Tomorrow or Vinegar Hill Magazine, or tuning in to In My Humble Opinion on Sundays on 101.3 Jams from noon to 3 p.m., either way, we want you engaged. We want you.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis. Only on 101.3 Jams.
We live in a society in which structural racism is a very real thing. We are all dealing with that in every aspect of our lives, and the media is a reflection of our community.
Historically, black people have been portrayed a certain way in the media to justify normative assumptions around political and social issues.
More black people behind the cameras, in front of the cameras, more producers.
IMHO Talk Show. That is right. Thank y'all for being with us. You could be anywhere in the world, but you're here with us for this 2026. And like we always do about this time, we already started the good conversation. But Max, something that I did not leave in 2025.
What's that?
is your theme music, man? Question. See, I was just waiting for somebody to say something. Like nobody caught it, but here we go. Yeah, so that's how we gonna round it off. But you know, but as we've been talking, these questions, this Russian roulette ass Max. You know, I don't know what you were thinking, Max, but I think a good play off of that of what we were just talking about. And tell me if you disagree. But I'm thinking, you know, our governor, like shouts out to Governor Spanberger.
Yeah, she
was just installed as governor of the Virginia General Assembly. Is coming up this Wednesday. We have the official inaugurations coming up this Saturday. So this is a big, busy week for Virginia. But the scrutiny that she has of the UVA board members, because we were talking about, you know, folks who have wore pointed hoods, wore badges, and have done things in the name of those things, but then are right here among us. They feel comfortable, you know, marching in Charlottesville. A lot of them have been taught at Thomas Jefferson's University, right? And so the board, as everybody knows, has been under scrutiny recently. Governor Spanberger had asked them to put a halt on some things until she took office, but while they didn't elect new board members, the current board did select a new university president. So what are y'all feelings just right now, you know, in regards of the way the state university has been going, and now we have a new governor in place who have appointed quite a few folks who are respected amongst the Black community as well to her cabinet, to her board. It's looking good. Are we hopeful that Virginia will be strong enough to stand up for itself when we disagree with what's being handed out from the federal government? When the federal government tells Charlottesville, not just UVA, right? Because we know how, as UVA goes, so does Charlottesville, say that DEI is no longer involved. We're gonna pull money from y'all if you do anything that represents diversity, equity, and inclusion, right? How we feeling? We feel like it's gonna be some major pushback that's gonna benefit us. What we thinking? Like I said, we got inaugurations and general assemblies this week. Right. New governor, democratically elected. She putting Black women in her cabinet, Max. I'm just saying, strong Black sister out of Richmond I saw too.
You know, I am of the belief now, we'll see whether or not it plays out, that we have a governor in place who is willing to push back if and when necessary against the federal government, and who will hopefully also be more vocal when it comes to those decisions that the University of Virginia are making when it comes to their board and president and et cetera. That is my hope. I would, of course, like to see the University of Virginia be more, and I used this word earlier, but to be more people-centered and to stand on something than to just kind of cower. And I know dollars on the line, right? But kind of cower always in the face of what they are being told to do. Like stand for something, and hopefully that something is what is right. And so that, you know, that's all that any of us can hope for. I'd like to see them head in the right direction. I would like to see them collaborate more with the city and provide more services and resources to people right here at home who need it. And provide a larger number of jobs right here in the city. They do not pay taxes, and they, you know, they have a lot of benefits as an entity seated right here in the city of Charlottesville. And I'd like to see that reciprocated, whereas the city and its residents can benefit from that. The most vulnerable residents are able to benefit from their presence of being here. So,
okay.
Me personally, mine is really short. I am fearful that African American males specifically will not know how to make the next transition for the next 10 years. I don't think anything is set in order for them to benefit. You know, trade schools cost too much now to be able to provide for your family. They don't have discipleship from we don't have enough discipleship to be able to show others how to come along, because what once worked doesn't work anymore. So I think that the caveat for who's going to fall off by the wayside is the Black male. And in that, I'm afraid that we will once again rule the prison system because of lack and want. Because you can't have in our community, you can't be strong if the males can't do anything in the family. If he becomes Mr. Mom and that's not his rightful place in God, then why would the woman want him if she has to take care of another child? I mean, that's might not be something that you want to say, but that's a reality of it, right? So as you just said, you know, she's appointing certain people that's growing and this, that, and other, and we clapping. I feel the same way that I did when we were trying to get Kamala into the presidency. Once she goes in, Black males lose, because the powers that be are say, okay, we're going to give you this, but we're going to take away that. And if this becomes non-existent, where is it for you to go but down? That is just my fear. How do I help? I don't know, because it's shifting me into survival mode myself.
So of course, that's why I disagree with you as always when it comes to that, to the plot of with the position that our representatives play. Because where I see the discrepancy in that of, you know, whether Spanberger or Harris and how, I guess you're saying general Democrats in general, how that may be worse when it comes to Black male incarceration.
No, I'm not saying Democrat. I don't want to. I'm trying to get away from titles, because titles make people focus and hone in and don't see the big picture. Can't see the forest for the trees. I'm learning that about how titles have limited people's creativity and their ability to see a better day because they're so locked in.
Right. So Max, here's my ultimate point though. The science of politics. The fact is, from what I've seen in my lifetime of studying history, is that in general, when more conservatives and Republicans are in office, some people see Black business growth or feel more freedom, because sometimes there are less regulations. Essentially, when the odds are against us socially, we feel like that we gotta hustle. And sometimes when you hustling, that leads to more liberation and more freedom. And I know what Saraya said about hustling, but but when things have been more democratically led, then sometimes we as a community take our foot off the gas, and then we get taken advantage of by the system. And my whole point is that we should never rely too much on the government. It always should start square one. Point A should be, we as a community, what are we doing for ourselves, right? And doing to grow and take care of our own. Because that's essentially what happens. It's like, if we're preparing ourselves, then we don't have to be in fear of, potential policies that may negatively impact us if we're handling our business. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but that was more so, in my opinion, when it was just white people and Black people, right? So now you got the same amount of housing, and you got 4 or 5 additional ethnicities applying for those same things. And like Max had said 3 or 4 shows ago, that it doesn't seem right that if I'm not from here, the government will take care of me and give me money to be able to build. And so it has to come from somewhere, because all I hear from the city of Charlottesville and every other entity is, we ain't got no money. We ain't got no money. We ain't got enough money to do everything, right? So that's always the caveat, to be able to make sure that that's sitting right here. What can I help you with? We ain't got enough money for everybody. That's what everybody say. I don't care if it's white, black, green, yellow. That's the default mechanism that they use to keep you from getting something. We only got so much money. We got to figure out where it has to go.
Yeah, I think we know that's not true. I think that should put us against each other.
But that is a lie that has been focused to the people that we do listen to, that spread that also say, no, I get a chance to see the books. This is what we do. Hey, I'm out here fighting for you, but they only got so much. Hey, we going down to Richmond to do these things. They only gonna give us this much money, but we know we got this kind of need. So the underlining to pull the rug from underneath you is built the same time as they're trying to get you what you need when they're asking.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
And Max, ultimately, it's a give and take, right? Like that's my thing. Is that's why we can't put too much weight in any candidate, any representative, because there's no perfect candidate.
Yeah.
And to me, I vote because it's supposed to be accountable. It's supposed to be what's the greatest good for society, not my personal beliefs on how you should run your life, because that's really not my business. How are we operating better as a community? And then I feel like, again, besides that, since it's a give and take, since nobody's perfect, if you want to say lesser of the two evils, then it's always going to boil down to what are we doing for self?
Yeah, Canada not stronger than the system, though.
Yeah. So something that I was thinking about as you two were talking is that I was having a conversation recently with someone who was talking about how African Americans have or have not experienced racism here in the city of Charlottesville. Have or have not experienced it.
Do what?
Have or have not. Have or have not. And in that, hold on for a second. And in that conversation, as best as I could tell, it was more so about their socioeconomic status, which created a buffer from them to experience some element, some level of racism, and how those that who experience it the most are at the very bottom of the income level of the, I'm not going to say society, but at the very bottom of the socioeconomic status. And so those are the ones who experience it the most, whereas where they are in life, they experience it least or kind of not at all here in the city.
Tell them to stop drinking. Number two, we see it all the time.
So when we talk about things like how we best prepare, it makes me bring into question how much the three of us sitting in this room will actually experience it, as opposed to those individuals who are most subject to experience it because of their socioeconomic status. And
we mean facts. I don't get that. Like, all you gotta do is go play Western Albemarle. Those people work over here in Charlottesville.
Right,
so you mean tell me the children act like that over there, but the parents don't act like that over here where they work?
They do. That's where they get it from. But I believe her point though is that whether you want to admit it or not, everybody has a level of privilege. Meaning if you weren't,
no, she didn't say that. That's not what she said.
But that's what I got from her.
Okay,
is that like we all have some level
privilege?
Yeah. Okay,
yeah. Like because my point is that you being Troy Robinson by birth. You know, Eddie said, "Mama named Troy, I'm gonna call him Troy." So you being that, if you weren't a public figure, if you didn't own Order Up, and you were looking like you, birthday, and you walk through some of the streets that you walk through, you gonna get profiled.
I get treated differently. I would.
So like, so even that's you being a black man,
a bad job of explaining it.
No.
It was a great job because you know, at least what I got from it was that. Even whether we want to admit it or not, and as many things as you have been through as a person and as a black man in this country, even you have a level of privilege that others don't.
I do. You know what I mean? No, I do. But I also understand that I'm more worried about the racism that my kids may experience than me. Like, you understand what I'm saying? And that comes from good and bad, because the expectation, when you have a parent who is doing something publicly and the kid comes along, people kind of expect something out the kid not all of them are built to take on the pressures of the things that, like, say the three of us have built, and it becomes hard, or, you know, the people just look. So I'm more worried about that racism. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that's my only point as we talk about how we specifically game plan. The thought is, how much will we really experience in comparison to those whose life to a certain degree will be dictated and directed based on the racism they experience, not by you can't come in my store. Like, it's not that blatant, you know, but the racism that exists in institutions and
ours
how that
is worse,
impacts
Max,
them.
because ours will be done behind our back. I would much rather get my racism dead in my face so I know how to handle it than for me to shake hands, walk off, and they be setting up my demise the whole time. The racism from where we are as public figures is way worse than being a homeless person walking down the downtown mall and them not wanting you to, your dog, your bags or whatever. You know what I'm saying? At least I'm getting it right here in my face. And that's about as far as it's going to go. Even though we might look at it as a glass ceiling that they can't do nothing. But the racism that we get behind closed doors because they can't do it in your face because you're public is way worse in my opinion.
But you can't say that they're better off to you. The racism is just different.
I don't know, y'all, because like
Razor, come on, you can't say
for real, man. Because when I'm talking about the way you're getting judged because of the way you look and what you have, you can deal with it, right? Because if you're looking at me racist because of my lack, if something changes or I clean myself up, get a haircut, then you might look at me as like I'm trying. But when you're already looked upon as somebody who's doing something in the community and they just don't like you because of your skin color, or they think that you got the job just because you're black, then they're setting up pitfalls for you that you don't know exist.
Yeah.
That's way worse than me.
Right. Yeah. So you're talking about like
they have it
like
better.
more so prejudices because somebody could be black, white, and homeless. It doesn't matter your color.
I'd rather be walking in a certain neighborhood and get called the N-word to know not to come back there than for me to be accepted to move in because you want my money because you need to drive up the property values. And then the whole time you complaining about me and my kids can't go to the trash can and I can't, you know what I'm saying? Like that's way worse than me. Like I just rather my racism be served right on the plate right in front of me.
He said on the platter. So Miss Max, what do you think? Should we close this thing out?
That's it.
Close this thing out. How do we do it? Did the studio audience agree that this was a good show? All right. But we can't leave just quite yet because Miss Max, we got some word from the street.
Right.
Some announcements for the people. We are going into a Dr. King weekend, right? Celebrate, and regardless of what them folks say, it's like Arizona 20 years ago. Dr. King's Day is a holiday. Don't you forget that. I forget what show. That was a show they did. It was a movie or something. Yeah, what they be Martin. Yeah, he said they be tripping in Arizona. Dr. King Day is a holiday. Hey, they be tripping in that White House nowadays. But so what we got, Max? We got the good Alexander as always is doing the Continuing His Dream and Works Monday, January 19th from 1 to 3 at the Carver Rec Center. Check that out, as well as our friends over at Abundant Life. They present MLK Day 2026. Also on January 19th from 5 to 8. So y'all can hit both of them right there. And then we also have at least sent to us, and y'all can send it, share it on our page as well. If we didn't get the if we didn't see it, make sure you send it to us. But also UVA's Division for Community Engagement and Equal Opportunity is doing the Community MLK celebration with guest historian, best-selling author, cultural commentator Imani Perry on January 22nd at 6 p.m. at the Paramount Theater. Tickets are free while they last. So if they're still available, y'all go hit Paramount for those Community MLK celebration tickets. Last but not least, some of y'all may have seen there's a community choir that was being promoted that they wanted folks to come out and be a part of. That is for the 41st annual, right? Building Community the Nonviolent Way. Martin Luther King Jr. Community Celebration and Worship Service. January 25th. Yes, we got a good over a week long celebrating the life and legacy of Dr. King. So January 25th at the Mount Zion First African Baptist Church. Lot going on there, and that will start at 4:00. So Dr. King celebration is supposed to be a time of community service and celebrating that legacy, y'all.
One thing,
good deal, lots to do.
Coming up soon, Order Up Eatery at the Jefferson School next to the Carver. Stay tuned if you want something different. I don't want to say something better. I'll let you say it, but we will be bringing something to you at the Jefferson very soon.
Big things popping.
All right. I guess until next time, family, City of Charlottesville, all the listening audience, take care of yourself. We will be back to bring you much more of what you enjoy with our dialogue, with our guests, with IMHO. Okay? Take care.
We live in a society in which structural racism is a very real thing. We are all dealing with that in every aspect of our lives, and the media is a reflection of our community.
Historically, black people have been portrayed a certain way in the media to justify normative assumptions around political and social issues.
More black people behind the cameras, in front of the cameras, more producers, more people of color producing, so they can go and get the content that's needed so they can highlight our attributes.
I've been in this industry for 15 years, and I've seen firsthand how our voices just aren't heard. Even if you're in the newsroom, sometimes you get completely ignored and stereotypes are allowed to perpetuate. And one thing we want to do is combat that and also bring information to people so they can be as informed as possible when choices are made in this city, so they can do whatever they can to get their voices heard.
What I believe can be done about the situation is to have more people of color creating news stories. More people who have a interest in and a social consciousness that relates to the stories that they're telling.
Charlottesville Tomorrow looks at these issues. We can present them on IMHO. Vinegar Hill Magazine can take that a step further, and just together we can just make this thing that can be an example of how we can change the media landscape, how we can be more inclusive to get these voices in, to get these people heard. That's just one thing that doesn't happen in so many places, and it's a shame.
We think we live in a society that's very progressive, and we're talking about equity and diversity and inclusion and all these things. Still, the way that black people, and I would say, and I would argue, especially black men, are portrayed by the media is incredibly dangerous, and you've seen the sort of tangible violence that it's led to over the past year.
The community can support the SIM project by first and foremost giving us an opportunity. We understand that it can be difficult to give trust right now, especially considering the current social and political environment. But this project will only be as successful as the community allows it to be. And so we ask you to give us the opportunity to do the work, critique the work, and make sure that we stay in line with the vision. Another way that the community can get behind the SIM project is through engagement. We want to hear from you. We want to know what you're talking about. We want to put your stories out there. And so whether it's reading the articles written by Charlottesville Tomorrow or Vinegar Hill Magazine, or tuning in to In My Humble Opinion on Sundays on 101.3 Jams from noon to 3 p.m., either way, we want you engaged. We want you to be part of this. The community can also support the SIM project through funding. To learn more about how to support SIM, you can visit our website. Thank you for your support.